I would like to welcome everyone to the May 2021 work session of the Henrico County School Board. The first item on our agenda is the actual approval of our agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Been moved by Ms. Kinsella. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Shea. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The agenda is approved. The second item on our agenda is our Pledge of Allegiance and moment of silence.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I am so pleased that we are joined by some students from our Newbridge Learning Center pre-K program to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance today. They are joined by our Director of Federal Programs and Foundational Learning, Tina Alsop, as well as Crystal Heffelbauer, our Newbridge Administrator, who's going to come to the podium and introduce our guest students, who will then lead us in the pledge. We are so pleased to have these folks with us today. I can't quite see them, but I know they're there.
Yes, so joining us right now, we have Wynn Soriano Jr., Amari Burley, Azari Pollard, and Marion Lee, and they're going to lead you in the pledge.
If you please stand while they lead us in the pledge. Thank you so much, boys and girls, for your outstanding. They shared with me briefly before our meeting they had so much enjoyed learning the pledge as well as the morning song, which they also performed for me, so I got a sneak peek of that. But thank you so much for joining us. We're now going to have a moment of silence, which can be used for those in attendance by personal reflection or prayer. That concludes our moment of silence. You may be seated, and thank you again to our guests. Our next item is a performance highlight, and I am so pleased to have you take your attention to our screens. You will be seeing a performance under the direction of Lisa Dyer from the high school theater arts department at Tucker High School for our video. So I will let them take it away.
Hello, fellow Sons of Liberty. I thank you for meeting me at such an hour to discuss our plans. Now let's settle down and get to business.
Yes, down with the British.
Now, calm down. We mustn't go into this directly without any planning. Fortunately, that is what this meeting is for.
We must attack the British where it hurts the most.
Yes, that is why we have decided to attack their tea shipments. We will destroy all of their exports.
As I say this as First Lady and your wife. But most importantly, I say this as a woman, and I say this on behalf of other women. We women are important. We educate, we advise, we guide, we create. We can do everything a man can. Why are we the only ones seen as fragile and vulnerable and not men? Can we not do anything a man can? Do we not equally have the brains and strategies?
Now I know there was some gossips, some tea spilled that I'm actually a British loyalist, with my lovely wife being English and all. And maybe I made a few buckabinos selling frog coats to British soldiers, but hey, guys gotta make a living somehow.
Alright, here we are, circa 1775, surrounding the fort just trying to survive. George Washington's the commander of the Continental Army, but he's got a secret weapon, his chief of the artillery.
Henry Knox risks his life for his men, pulls off feats you can't believe. Practically single-handed, he broke into that fort and brought back supplies, nearly 120,000 pounds of artillery for his guys.
Listen, I'm just doing what I was taught using military knowledge that as a child I sought. I pored over books on war strategies. Turns out Washington took quite an interest in my abilities.
I cannot believe anyone would do such a thing.
Those revolutionaries are fighting for our representation because Britain taxes us so unfairly. How can you just stand around while they massacre our men in Boston and not let us move to the West? You disgust me.
Oh my. The men who formed their hopes and fears from handbills, pamphlets, gazetteers, protect and peace or ease? Ah, surely no, it cannot be. These are false sons of liberty.
I failed you. All the times I've mistreated you. Philip, oh how I've missed you. All the times I could have been with you, but I stood by. It's my fault that you died.
Theodore shall not let you cry. You'll be by my side till the very last day I'm alive.
Please, sir. Papa, I held the gun up to the sky, the gun that could have saved me, determined whether I lived or died. It could have let me hold my mama's hand another time.
I was looking at the votes, and there seems to be an indistinction between them. Not that it matters. It'll be Federalist either way. Sincerely, the clear winners, the Federalist Party. Our first, 1800, dear arch nemesis Federalist Party. Adams's term has been so lackluster thus far, while Jefferson will bring new life to the presidency.
Unhappy Boston, fee thy sons deplore, thy hallowed walks besmeared with guiltless gore. While faithless precedent is savage bands, with murderous rancor stretch their bloody hands. The noise is horrendous, the fire bell. The soldiers march along the street, the demons from our hell. They began to cock and present their guns. Some choose to flee the streets, a young boy runs.
I wish I'd known what I needed to do. Who's sitting on my throne? No one ever knew. No one ever knew. Reckoning on the beat.
I tried to be king, but they misunderstood. Gave everything and did what I could. Should've won the war. I tried my best, as people were lucky.
And a round of applause for our Tucker High School theater arts students. Their unique interpretations of history, Hamilton-inspired, student-created, were a pleasure to feature this afternoon. And I will turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes our performance highlight.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, Madam Superintendent. The next item on the agenda is a closed session for discussion of matters covered under item A1 of section 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia as amended pertaining to the assignment, appointment, performance, disciplining, and release of contract for specific school board employees. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Been moved by Mrs. Ogburn. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Atkins. All opposed? I'm sorry, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. We will go into closed session. We will reconvene the work session at the conclusion of our closed meeting. The next item on our agenda is the certification of our closed session. Is there a motion to certify the closed session?
So moved.
Been moved by Mrs. Atkins. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Kinsella. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed have the same right. The ayes have it. The closed session has been certified. Ms. Atkins, can you read our mission statement, please?
An innovative leader in educational excellence will actively engage our students in diverse educational, social, and civic learning experiences that inspire and empower them to become contributing citizens.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Atkins. Madam Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the first item, I am recommending that the school board approve the appointment of administrative personnel.
Board members, you have heard the superintendent's request. Is there a motion to approve the appointment of administrative personnel?
Chair Cooper?
Yes, ma'am.
Before I make a motion, I just want to thank Dr. Cashwell for her responsiveness on this item. I know it had, some of these positions have been a priority pre-COVID, and it's a follow-up to some conversation we had at recent board meetings. So thank you for that. So that saying, I make a motion to approve these administrative appointments.
Thank you, Ms. Shea. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Ogburn.
And I also second what Mrs. Shea said.
Okay, I think we concur. We all second that too. Ms. Atkins, do you second what she said?
I do
What
as well.
about you, Ms. Kinsella?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ogburn.
Adam is second.
Yes, ma'am. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed have the same right. The ayes have it. The administrative appointments are approved.
Thank you, board members, for your energetic approval of that item. And so the board has just approved Suzanne Lauer, Associate Principal, Crestview Elementary, Christina Wydell, Associate Principal, Echo Lake Elementary, Tamika Lowe, Associate Principal, Fair Oaks Elementary, Ashley Walker, Assistant Principal, Henrico High School, Megan Lindeman, Associate Principal, Holiday ES. Emily Massey, Human Resources Specialist for Exceptional Education, Angela White, Associate Principal, Laburnum Elementary, Lisa Woods, Associate Principal, Longin, Sarah Blackburn, Associate Principal, Mayfield, Jessica Chamberlain, Associate Principal, Pemberton Elementary, Emily McMillan, Associate Principal, Sandston Elementary, Corey Calder, Assistant Principal, Short Pump Middle School, Elizabeth Brock, Associate Principal, Three Chopped Elementary, and Aaron Traylor, Associate Principal, Twin Hickory Elementary. And congratulations to all our new administrative appointees. All right, for the next item, we have our Health Committee update, and Dr. Tigan will come forward. I believe Mrs. Gilbert is here as well, as has become tradition, to give us our report.
Good afternoon, Chairman Cooper, member of the board, and Dr. Cashwell. The Health Committee has met twice since we stood here 2 weeks ago on May 13th. At the board meeting. And based on those last two meetings, the Health Committee meetings, we will be reviewing the most recent data and comparing last week's student and teacher attendance data to the baseline. We will be continuing to communicate the availability of vaccines, examining current staffing levels within school health, talking about our volunteer status as of today, and looking ahead to the Summer Academy and the 2021-2022 school year. Let's begin with a look at the most recent current core indicators, as well as that secondary criteria. On May 12th, the total number of new cases per 100,000 persons within a 7-day period was 56.79. And the percentage of PCR tests that were positive during that same 7-day period was 3.3%. As we look at the data released yesterday, which is, you can see circled here on the chart, the total number of new cases per 100,000 persons within the last 7 days was down to 38.27. And the percentage of PCR tests that were positive during that same 7-day period was 2.1%. Thus, the community transmission level is now at the moderate level. As with 2 weeks ago, I'm going to say we should be celebrating. As the community case numbers fell below 50 cases per 100,000 persons last week, schools were able to transition on Monday from the 10-day to a 24-hour quarantine period. This means student and staff need to be symptom-free, including being fever-free for 24 hours without medication before they return to school. The 24-hour quarantine aligns with the VDH guidelines given our current level of transmission and is what our pre-COVID practices were. In addition to the two indicators, the committee reviewed the data related to the secondary criteria. And as a reminder, the secondary criteria indicators are transmission within school, student absenteeism, and staff capacity. And based on the current data, the impact of community transmission on our schools remains low. There have been no additional outbreaks, and when considering staff capacity, Teacher absences have only increased minimally, and the demand for substitutes remains low. I would also like to note that the ability again to acquire substitute teachers remains high. This week, we saw a few less the beginning of the week, and the need for fewer the end of the week when we approached Wednesday through Friday. At this point, Ms. Gilbert will come forward to share an update on vaccinations and staffing within Student Health Services.
Good afternoon. Yay. I don't know what else to say.
Ms. Gilbert, pull that mic down and speak into it so the community can hear from you, please. Thank you.
Sir. So we are jubilant that this has occurred. We are just ecstatic. We are at a great place. And while we've gotten those numbers in a good place, we want to continue that. Our efforts with the VDH and collaboration in vaccination events are going to be ongoing. We meet with them tomorrow morning. Dr. Tigan and myself are looking at the possibility of setting up vaccination events within our middle schools, not just for our students, but the students' families as they come. So that is a possibility for us. We have looked at available appointments throughout our community to continue to increase those vaccinated, knowing that we now can vaccinate students from 12 years of age and up. We believe those vaccination appointments this past week look somewhere around the neighborhood of 10,000 appointments. That included appointments at our Richmond Wasteway, physician offices, and local pharmacies, as well as other VDH events. So we will continue those collaborative efforts with VDH to ensure that our students and their families have those opportunities available to them to continue to receive that vaccine. As I said, the Richmond Wasteway, our last event is today, and while I say that with some sadness, there is a great deal of joy in that we have given almost 170,000 vaccinations out at the Raceway, which is absolutely phenomenal. We, as I said, will continue to collaborate with VDH for possible events within our schools. And as of Wednesday, this past Wednesday, I have the following information to report to you. And that is that 28.8% of our Henrico children ages 12 to 17 have received their first dose of vaccine. So that's a quarter, and that's a first step. That's good. We have 9.7% of these children who have been fully vaccinated. Now remember, we've only been vaccinating our 12 to 15-year-olds for about 2 weeks now. So we're on the right path. We just need to continue that. So yay on a lot of different levels. Recruitment efforts, I hope to be able to bring you all some good information today, and I believe I do. Other open positions currently, of which are 2, I believe one of them is filling today. So I'm very excited that we may have one of those positions filled, and we're interviewing for the second. I also have 5 positions for licensed nurses that will be opening for school year 21-22. We continue to recruit for our summer positions. As those positions or the programs update and we get verification of hours and days, we are working to get a licensed position in each of those schools so that our students have that level of care, as well as have a clinic aide to work with that school staff and their nurse. The clinic aides right now, we have 23 openings, and we will be continuing to recruit for those, not just to work with us through the summer in our programs, but also to cover our schools and work with their nurses and staff into school year 21-22. We have 4 schools in our summer recruitment right now that need both a license and a clinic aide. We also have 1 school that is still in need of a license. So 5 schools we're still actively recruiting a licensed nurse for. So all in all, some good news as we move forward towards our summer and the end to a pretty rough year for school health. I'm going to turn this back over to Dr. Tigan.
Thank you, Ms. Gilbert. So I am happy to share that schools transitioned to Tier 3 on Monday, May 17th, and for our school volunteers, and they continue to remain at Tier 3. So volunteers are now able to be in classrooms, cafeterias, and gyms, and they may work in proximity to students and staff as long as they wear a mask and practice social distancing. So to be clear, as long as the data continues to be favorable, meaning that community transmission is at moderate or low level, that this is what we expect for the remainder of this year for our volunteers, as well as going into summer school and moving into next year. I know I have stated previously, but it's important for volunteers to know that when they do come into a building, they will be required to complete a health screening, including a temperature check, and then they will also be required to continue wearing a mask and practice social distancing. Most importantly, the principal has discretion to determine whether or not the school is able to implement the current tier level. And we continue to look ahead beyond the current school year to the summer academy and next school year. For summer academy, we will continue to follow the basic tenets of the HCPS COVID-19 health plan while making some adjustments. Now, masks will continue to be worn by staff and students. There'll be a slight modification with breakfast and lunches will be a grab and go style with students eating in their classrooms or maybe in their cafeterias, depending on the numbers. And this is really to try to maximize learning time. In addition, field trips will not be taken, but they will be resumed in the fall. The plexiglass desk guards will not be a required part of our health mitigation strategy during the summer, but they will be available in case a student or staff member would like to use them based on health or medical needs or concerns. Social distancing will be at 3 feet to the greatest extent possible. The Health Committee also discussed preparations for the upcoming school year over the last few meetings. And as we prepare for a full return in September, the following recommendations were made and approved by the division leadership team. Again, the plexiglass desk guards, like in the summer, will be available in case there is a request. However, they will not be required. Lunchtime, we'll see students returning to the cafeteria. When students return to in-person learning in the fall, grade level and division-wide field trips will be reinstated. And requested field trips that do not fall into one of those two categories as grade level or division-wide will be reviewed centrally. That does not mean they won't happen. It's just we want to make sure of where the destination is and what mitigation factors may be required. Of course, we continue to stay abreast of current health conditions and will respond accordingly if there is a change anytime over the summer or going into the fall. We continue also to look forward to feedback from our staff and families, and we want to thank those who shared their thoughts, as that has been a part of our discussions and our safe return to in-person plan for September. This plan will be posted on the HCPS website by the time we return from the holiday weekend. Continued feedback is encouraged through the online and in-person public comment. And of course, people can always reach out to the superintendent, to myself, and to Ms. Gilbert. The Health Committee does discuss the information that we get from emails and phone calls. And at this point, Ms. Gilbert and I will be happy to try to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you again, Dr. Tigan and Ms. Gilbert. Ms. Kinsella, do you have any questions?
I'm going to start off with a comment. I think I can speak on behalf for my colleagues when I say how happy we are to see us in the yellow. We've certainly made some progress, and I appreciate all of the hard work. Having attended the Raceway event for when they had it for 12 and up, It was extraordinary. I'm just so pleased we're going to continue to offer the access and opportunity to families and students who choose to get the vaccine. I heard from some constituents that are concerned about the mandatory, if it was going to be mandatory for us to prove having a vaccine. Can you please explain how that is not true, that we will not mandate it in any way?
Right. We are not mandating COVID vaccines for our students or our staff. The vaccines that, when they think of the childhood vaccines that are required, those are required by VDOE, not by Henrico County Public Schools. And so at this point, there's been no conversation that I've heard, even at the state level, that would require any type of COVID vaccine for next school year or beyond.
And I guess just thinking, looking ahead to the fall, do we anticipate being able to accommodate transportation? And if there isn't 3-foot distancing, can we accommodate that with all of our students back in buildings?
Well, we're going to do our best on accommodating, but we also know that we have to provide transportation for all of our students who need it.
Okay.
And want it.
Okay. That's all I have for today. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Kinsella. Ms. Ogburn.
I was going to say, you jumped over Mrs.
Yeah, I'm
Shea.
gonna do a little
It took me
different today.
by, going to mix it up today. Okay.
He's keeping you on your toes.
I'm coming for you.
You got to keep on your toes around here.
Yep.
Just a quick reiteration. We always evaluate the current guidance, because if you remember, during our last meeting, new guidance came out while we were talking. So just to assure parents, this is a constant evaluation day to day. I've had a number of emails in the last week or so about, the rest of this year and can we do away with masks, et cetera. And so, the answer I've been giving is we do this all the time. We're evaluating. So just over the summer, what happens in the fall may change.
Absolutely.
But your work is ongoing. You meet over the summer as well, correct?
Right. The health committee is committed to meeting throughout the summer, and even we are going to go to every other week to do it every 2 weeks. However, staff is still monitoring the data every week.
Okay. Just reassurances for the public that
yes, ma'am.
Y'all aren't disbanding. Okay. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ogburn. Ms. Shea.
Hello, yellow. It's a good day. You mentioned that it's the switch to the 24-hour quarantine for symptoms, so 24 hours after the last symptom, which is typical to the policy every year. What about those that have been contact traced? What does that quarantine period look like?
So our contact tracing really has not changed any, with the exception of those who have been vaccinated. So if we have a staff member or a student who has been fully vaccinated, which again is either the 1 shot for our staff of Johnson & Johnson or 2 shots Moderna and Pfizer with 2 weeks post that second vaccination or that Johnson & Johnson shot, then if they're asymptomatic, then they would not be asked to quarantine. Now, if they have an exposure, even if they have been vaccinated and they are symptomatic, then that changes the picture. Okay. But vaccines do preclude the quarantine with asymptomatic folks.
And I assume this is in line with what
CDC and VDH
people
guidelines.
Much higher than we are.
Exactly. Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Thank you. I also just wanted to mention, my people are going to be so excited about hearing about plexiglass for next year, and that it will be optional. I've heard it from both parents, but also teachers, particularly of our younger ones, that it can be a barrier in a lot more ways than, just around the desk in terms of distractions and inability to see. So I appreciate you providing that update. I know you and I have spoken with a lot of stakeholders about that. Masks, just to piggyback what Ms. Ogburn was saying, for clarity, right now, masks in our school is not our choice.
Correct.
Correct? It is still, it's part of the 7th amended Executive Order 72, correct? So that is out of our hands for assumingly the rest of the school year.
Yeah, I think that was specifically stated through the end of the school year, and the emergency order won't expire until the end of June, like June 30th.
Okay. I think there's also been a lot of confusion around that after, I think, last week's email with some further clarification about masks. So it's not our call. All right. And then my last bit is I just want to talk some science a little bit. So to talk about really the importance of those who are able and comfortable getting vaccinated. So from a science standpoint, the more a virus propagates, the more likely it is to mutate, correct?
Correct.
So in that way, the more of our community who's able to get vaccinated, the less the virus should propagate in the community, correct?
Technically.
Yeah, so less likely to mutate. So, I hear a lot of feedback that this virus doesn't affect children, which, but different strands could have different impacts on different age groups. And so as we, don't know the future of this virus, and we're hoping numbers will continue to decrease, the way to keep all of our students the safest and all of our community the safest is those who are able to and comfortable to get vaccinated as soon as possible.
Right. I think it's really important, though, that there are people who are not able, due to the guidance of
Absolutely.
their physician with underlying conditions, as well as, for the same reasons some families don't get other vaccines are due to religious factors. So.
Correct. Yep. All right. So thank you for entertaining me there as we just talk about, again, those who are able and comfortable with it to join our vaccination effort. That's all for me.
Thank you so much, Ms. Shea. Ms. Atkins.
Now, she dressed for the community spread level.
Yellow. We knew yellow. But seriously, Dr. Tigan and Ms. Gilbert, and to the entire Health Committee, it has been a long road. And we're going to continue to stay on that road because every last one of us want to make sure that we can do the best we can to get our kids and staff in the building safely. We also, just for the public, wanting to make you aware that we truly do have discussions on the feedback that we receive from you. And some of that feedback around making sure that all are welcome. Just as Mrs. Shea pointed out, there are some that want to get the vaccine, but they are not able, maybe due to specific religions, conditions or diseases around blood, and also long COVID as well. And so, and those impacts. And so I just want to let everyone know that this is a special committee that has been dedicated, committed, and has had to shift multiple times and may have to continue shifting as we receive recommendations and mandates to do the best that we can to provide guidance and recommendations to this particular school board. So again, all of this is to say kudos to this health committee for staying the course and being problem solvers and making really tough decisions. So kudos to the entire health committee.
Thank you so much, Ms. Atkins. Again, I reiterate and repeat everything the platitudes my peers have shared. Thank you both so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Chairman and members of the board, next I'll be seeking your approval of a number of policies that have come before the board at our prior meeting for your review. And so I am seeking your approval of the proposed revisions to policy P6-04-003.
Is there a motion to approve the proposed revisions to policy P6-04-003, search and seizure?
So moved.
Been moved by Ms. Ogburn. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Shea. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. The policy has been approved.
Thank you. Next, I'm seeking your approval of proposed revisions to policy P6-05-013.
Is there a motion to approve proposed revisions to policy P6-05-013, technology and the internet?
So moved.
Been moved by Mrs. Kinsella. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Atkins. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the ayes have it. The policy has been approved.
Thank you. Also seeking your approval of the proposed revisions to policy P6-08-001.
Is there a motion to approve proposed revisions to policy P6-08-001, report cards, interim grades?
So moved.
Been moved by Ms. Shea. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Kinsella. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. The policy has been approved.
Thank you. Also seeking your approval of the policy P6-12-002, activity fund management.
Is there a motion to approve policy P6-12-002?
So moved.
Been moved by Ms. Atkins. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Ogburn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. The policy has been approved.
Thank you. Next, recommending the board's approval of proposed revisions to policy P7-09-002.
Is there a motion to approve policy P7-09-002, reporting of student progress?
So moved.
Been moved by Ms. Shea. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Kinsella. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. The policy has been approved.
Thank you. Also seeking your approval of proposed revisions to policy P7-09-004.
Is there a motion to waive the 30-day review period and approve proposed revisions to policy P7-09-004, graduation requirements?
So moved.
It's been moved by Ms. Atkins. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Kinsella. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. The policy has been approved.
Thank you. Next, I'm recommending that the school board accept the Shell Oil Company and the National Science Teacher Association grant award valued at $6,000 to Rolfe Middle School.
Ms. Atkins, would you like to make a motion to accept the Shell Oil Company and the NSTA grant award?
Yes, I would. So moved.
It's been moved by Ms. Atkins. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Shea. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. The grant has been approved. Accepted, excuse me.
Thank you so much. All right, next, I'm pleased that the board will be provided an update and overview on the development and implementation of our Henrico County Public Schools pre-K through 12 literacy plan and plans for the 2021-2022 school year that are related. Mike Dussault and Anne Marie Seeley, directors of teaching and learning, are here to provide that presentation.
Good afternoon, Chairman Cooper, members of the board, Dr. Cashwell. My name is Mike Dussault, Director of Teaching, Learning, and Innovation. With me this afternoon are Anne Marie Seeley, Director of School Quality, and Dr. Christina Saunders, Elementary English Language Arts Specialist. Together, we are excited to introduce Henrico's LifeReady Literacy Plan. And before we go any further, I would like to recognize Ms. Kendall Hunt, our ELA specialist, who was instrumental in putting this together, and also who's not here today, Ms. Erica Basnight-Johnson, our secondary specialist, and thank you for their leadership in this wonderful project, so thank you. The LifeReady Literacy Plan outlines Henrico's deliberate pathway to achieve the goals identified in Destination 2025. The pre-K through 12 plan addresses the needs of all students by providing access to culturally relevant materials, utilization of core materials and curriculum, and the implementation of evidence-based instructional strategies. Our goal is to provide equitable instruction that builds upon students' strengths, values diversity, provides the necessary support to help all students achieve, and engages a variety of stakeholders. By strengthening literacy and addressing opportunity gaps, we will empower students to be life-ready and prepared for post-secondary success in college, career, and life. The work on this plan began with our why, our almost 50,000 diverse learners who rely on Henrico County Public Schools to prepare, inspire, engage them to thrive in a rapidly changing world. Now more than ever, our world demands our students have the knowledge, skills, and attributes for learning in life. That foundation starts with literacy. To address our learners, we of course started with our North Star, Destination 2025. The team of literacy leaders consulted our guiding documents, the Henrico Learner Profile, the Deeper Learning Model, and the Culturally Responsive Education Model for alignment. Our Henrico Learner Profile outlined the charge for establishing a foundation of literacy that helps build our students into communicators who can explore and exchange ideas with others, thinkers who analyze, synthesize, generate, and build ideas, and collaborative citizens who form partnerships as active participants in a larger society. Our Deeper Learning Model reinforced the ability to read, write, communicate, and think critically, explore problems and seek answers to questions whenever and wherever they are curious. And our Culturally Responsive Model allowed us to leverage the strengths of our students' diversity. The committee recognized culturally relevant and content integration would be essential. Students need to see themselves and their own culture reflected in the text and curriculum as they construct knowledge. So work began on the literacy plan in late 2019. After creating a steering committee, we held regular meetings during the 2019-2020 school year to seek input from multiple stakeholders via small work groups, district work groups, and multiple division-level brainstorming meetings. Even though the presentation of this plan was put on hold due to the pandemic, implementation actions still moved forward during the 2020-21 school year. The division literacy team was intentional in our efforts to bring a diverse perspective to the table to examine current practices in Henrico, data or lack thereof data, alignment with the state standards, the science of reading, other frameworks, and to set up our students for post-secondary success. LifeReady Literacy is a belief that literacy extends beyond the traditional English language arts classroom. The ability to read, write, and communicate connects people to one another and empowers them to achieve things they never thought possible. Communication and connection are the basis of who we are and how we live together in the world. The team who constructed our LifeReady Literacy Plan narrowed the focus down to a framework that had the following must-have intentions. It had to guide our decision-making, provide necessary resources, implement evidence-based strategies, use data to drive instruction, and grow lifelong readers and writers. The LifeReady Literacy Plan was not designed to be a how-to guide to teach reading. It was designed to provide the vision for literacy for Henrico County Public Schools. If we know that literacy is the foundation for all learning, and we believe that strengthening literacy prepares students to be life-ready, the building of a strong foundation must be at the core of our plan. It takes hard work, dedication, and support from all members of our community. Our Teaching, Learning, and Innovation Department believes that developing students' ability to read, write, communicate, and think is a shared responsibility, with each stakeholder playing an integral part in our students' success. By working together as a learning community and embracing a shared understanding of the power in literacy, we can commit to providing our students with the foundations necessary to be successful once they leave our care. We encourage all stakeholders to visit our plan on the Henrico County Public Schools website and see how they can become a champion of literacy. So students learn the foundational literacy skills in language arts classrooms, but the content areas are where we can allow for that authentic practice and application of these skills. Our plan looks to align this authentic application of literacy skills across all disciplines. This can only be achieved through the collaboration with content area teachers who embrace the belief that we all have a role to support the development of literacy. Our literacy leaders have created one-page documents that will anchor and illustrate how literacy skills are applied in content areas. These documents will drive our professional learning and authentic literacy connections throughout our content areas over the course of this year and the years to come. Our LifeReady Literacy team identified 5 key action steps to guide the work each year as we move closer towards the goals outlined in Destination 2025. These action steps will help organize and drive our framework to ensure we're moving towards our desired objective. Students will have literacy and numeracy skills for academics and life. LifeReady Literacy Committee members will continue to meet regularly to reflect and support on the implementation of our plan, to ensure we stay true to our identified purposes and actions. So during this process, our team had multiple conversations around the metrics for success. Ultimately, we believed 2 key metrics needed to be the expectation for success. Number 1, all students will read on or above grade level by 3rd grade. And number 2, all students will meet or exceed accreditation targets in language arts as measured by the SOL assessments. While student performance on an SOL assessment is easy to understand, determining an on-grade level reading proficiency at times can be difficult to establish. Our Teaching, Learning, and Innovation Department have intentionally set up multiple measures to gauge the most accurate picture of a student's reading proficiency and how to adjust their instructional pathways accordingly. The metrics to gauge our success will start with pre-existing district key measures of reading proficiency, such as Fountas and Pinnell, guided reading levels, PALS assessments, and achievement data on the Virginia Standards of Learning. In 21-22, additional research-based assessments and resources that addressed early literacy concepts, such as decoding and phonological awareness, will be infused in our elementary grades, while new growth measure tool will be introduced at the secondary level to gauge student progress. These new assessment tools and resources will allow our staff to carefully monitor the progress and give us the most complete school, student, and district progress as we move towards Destination 2025. Now that we've outlined our guiding actions to make our vision a reality, Anne-Marie Seeley will now talk you through some of the details on how we will operationalize this plan into a living, breathing support system for our students.
Thank you, Mike. Good afternoon. So how does a district tackle such a broad outcome in Destination 2025 with such lofty metrics? As you can see from our timeline, the Department of Teaching, Learning, and Innovation was determined that the pandemic would not stop our plans for bringing clarity to literacy in Henrico County schools, even though our presentation was tabled in May of 2020. Many of these plans began to materialize in the fall of 2020 as we introduced such things as the new pre-K through 5 English Language Arts curriculum, targeted phonics supports, an increased variety of diverse print and digital texts, and additional digital resources or assessments that helped close gaps and drive our instruction. As the literacy team moved into the spring of 2021, they continued to review the data from schools. Leaders identified where students were making progress and where additional professional learning or resources were still needed. As we look toward the 21-22 school year, we are fortunate to have such a supportive school board who advocates and works hand in hand with the county government so that pre-K through 12 students have the instructional staff, tools, and resources to meet the needs of all learners. To ensure we are good stewards of that financial support, the elementary language arts block has been expanded from 90 to 120 minutes. This allows for increased flexibility to support the acquisition of early foundational literacy skills, including the Hegarty Phonological Awareness Curriculum and explicit instruction in phonics for primary grades, as well as additional time for guided practice for upper elementary students. Our phonics and word knowledge curriculum is also being expanded through 3rd grade to provide more systematic and explicit support for phonological skills K through 3. We are also adding 15 school-based reading specialists. This investment in reading specialists will help us to implement our LifeReady plan and ensure we are meeting the needs of all students and teachers. Secondary ELA classrooms will begin using a student growth measure embedded in Houghton Mifflin Harcourt's Into Literature resource. Into Literature supports the 6 through 12 ELA curriculum to empower students to love reading, hone their speaking and writing voices, and communicate with the world. The student growth measure will serve as a universal screener to determine students' reading levels in grades 6 through 12. The 21-22 school year will be the first year middle schools will use a systematic approach to reading intervention. Teachers will receive targeted professional learning in teaching reading. Progress will be monitored regularly, and students will have the added support of a reading intervention digital resource with Lexia Core. Our literacy leaders believe that assessments should be used strategically to drive instruction, and we have taken the opportunity to further adjust the alignment of assessments with our instructional goals. Beginning with the 21-22 school year, elementary assessments will be adjusted to better target early reading skills. Building that strong foundation is essential for reading success, and additional research-based assessments that address early literacy concepts, such as decoding and phonological awareness, will be infused in our elementary grades. Pre-existing district key measures of reading proficiency, such as the Fontes and Pinnell guided reading levels, PALS, and achievement data on the Virginia Standards of Learning Assessment will still be used as data points. The 21-22 school year will also continue to see an expansion in the use of performance tasks. Performance tasks allow our students to demonstrate and apply their literacy knowledge for authentic purposes across all content areas. Digital resources such as SmartyAnts and Lexia Core 5 will continue to be used. These resources allow us to capture data on a student's proficiency across several aspects of literacy at multiple points in the year. Using data from a variety of resources, following a balanced assessment approach, allows us to gain a more detailed picture of our students as readers, writers, thinkers, and communicators. These assessments work together to create a rich profile of our students and their strengths. Our LifeReady Literacy Plan embodies the belief that we all play a part in literacy instruction and support. To achieve our goals, we need to forge strong partnerships within and beyond our division. On this slide are a few of our intentional instructional partnerships. We look forward to further cementing that link between literacy and schools and literacy for success in life through these partnerships. When students struggle, our Teaching, Learning, and Innovation team has a plan to help them succeed. HCPS intervention will be reconceptualized in the 21-22 school year. Our team of literacy leaders has created a model that closely integrates intervention with classroom instruction. This strengthens the connection with Tier 1 instruction and increases collaboration between all teachers working with students. Professional learning will begin this summer to support our teachers as they work toward closing gaps. To foster our divisional belief that we all teach literacy, the Department of Teaching, Learning, and Innovation will assure that we have supports in place for all teachers and instructional staff. In the coming weeks, staff will have an opportunity to see and hear the Henrico Vision for Literacy. Professional learning sessions will provide teachers with an introduction to the literacy plan, along with an overview of updates to the elementary language arts block and integrated intervention model. For this plan to become a reality, every stakeholder has a role to play. We encourage our stakeholders to take time and unpack our plan in greater detail on our Henrico County Public Schools webpage. There you will find a complete overview of our district plan in its entirety and find out more specific information regarding our pathway to reaching our desired outcomes. At this time, we would be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you so much, Ms. Seeley and Mr. Dassault. I'm going to begin to my left with Mrs. Ogburn.
Okay, thank you. You know, when we have a lot of statistics and data, Marcy gets really excited. This is my stuff. This is where I get really excited. So you'll have to forgive me because it's going to take a while. But I'm just so excited that we're having this conversation. And truly, Mike, I feel like we're in good hands because this is your wheelhouse too, coming from your background and seeing what works and having been at Twin Hickory and how successful the reading and literacy plan was. So I feel like we're really in good hands. But if we could go to the 5th slide, Ms. Harris, if you don't mind, or I don't know who's controlling the slides, but the one that has the list of people who are coming together, it's way back. Yeah, that one, because to me, this is key. If we're not, like you said, this is everybody working together, and if we're not all on the same page and everybody in the building, but also everybody in the county isn't working on the same page, it's not going to work. And we've tried the JN plan, we've tried so many different things over the years, because as you said, Mike, the goal is to get kids reading on 3rd grade. We've been talking about this for years, and I know it's not just Henrico, everybody's been talking about this for years. But to have everybody working towards the same goal, using the same language, the same materials, I think will really make a huge difference. But that to me, when I saw this, I was really glad, especially bringing in exceptional ed and gifted, and everybody working together is amazing. But if you could go 2 more, the one about the purpose. The other thing that really struck out to me was instructional strategies, but also resource allocation, making sure that the teachers, the classrooms, librarians, whoever it is that's working on this, have the resources that they need. So if you could just tell me a little bit about what we're changing there for resource allocation or how it's going to be different than it is now. I know that's a big question.
So I'll start with elementary first. Our infrastructure had some holes in it. And through the support of the school board and the county, we are able to go ahead and add a variety of things. So first of all, I'll start with just Fontes and Pinnell kits. We're going to be able to have a 2-to-1 ratio next year.
Oh, that's great.
Before it was maybe you had one on a grade level, and it would take weeks and weeks and weeks to do assessments, which would slow down the instruction and where to start with students. So we'll start with that. The digital resources, which I know you've heard a lot about over the course of this year, are absolute game changers. As teachers have now had months of working with this, I cannot tell you the conversations that we've had about, I'm starting to see how this works now, how not only am I getting scores, but I can change what I'm doing with a small group or with an individual group. So they're seeing the power in the fidelity of the tools. I go back to the books that we are going to have, decodable books. So when they are working on phonics and phonemic awareness, they're actually reading books. We have comprehension going on where we did not have that ability because we did not have those books equally throughout the county. And then probably the game changer for us is the intervention. We have a plan to address students where they are so that if a student needs a specific skill, they will be able to get that and they'll get the instruction with fidelity on that specific skill because not everybody's going to come back at the same place. And I know parents have a fear of the learning loss or the unfinished learning, and that's a real fear. But the beauty of reading instruction is that's what it's all about. That's what a 120-minute block does. We meet the students where they are and close the gaps, or we enrich if they do not have gaps right there and move them forward. So I could go on for like hours about all the things we have, and they'll probably have to pull me off. So I'd be more than happy to share other ones if you'd like.
Well, and while you mentioned interventionists, because, again, that is what I came from. And so I'm really curious how we're going to, because you said we're reimagining how the interventionists are used and bringing them more into the classroom. But are we going to do more of a county-wide how people are hired, what their criteria, what their credentials are, because I know in the past that's been.
But that's a fabulous question. And we shared this a little bit with the principals about a month ago so they could start wrapping their heads around this. So what we're doing is we're giving the autonomy to the building leaders. So if they have an interventionist who they believe would be the best fit for delivering that instruction, they can continue to do that within the classroom. But the other part of it is they have the ability to have their classroom teacher deliver the intervention. So that way, not only are we empowering our teachers to learn more about the science of reading and how to better connect with kids, principals now have that autonomy to be able to shift folks around to do what's best for their particular grade level. And that's where we did not have that ability before. When we sent kids to intervention, it was a one-size-fits-all. We now do not have that issue. We send kids where they need to go, and we have the adults to do it.
Well, and two, I mean, years ago, we piloted, and I was part of this program where we piloted new intervention materials and ultimately decided not to keep that and support it, but had a great assessment tool with it and stuff. But then we kept the materials, but no longer supported. And so that's one thing I think would be really key for intervention is to have some supporting materials. Because when you go in one school and you go in another, the intervention materials are night and day difference. And a lot of times it's what people have been able to collect themselves, make themselves, or what was left behind from 3 teachers ago. And so they're not the latest, and probably best materials.
And I'm very happy to report those have already started to arrive in buildings this week.
Awesome.
And when they have their launch to learning next week, they get a little bit of a preview of what they have. So when they go home this summer, they know exactly what they will have in front of them. And then the deeper dive this summer, we are very excited about the distribution throughout the entire
county. And I think that's one thing that's been missing, is something that the intervention teachers really had access to materials that would help them meet the needs, like you said, where the kids are. Right. Because that's the challenge, you might have a group of 6 kids and they're in 6 different places, but you have to meet all of their needs, but you don't have everything that you need to do that. So I am thrilled to see that. Because at times I would have, 35 4th graders. You should never have a 4th grader. I'm like, by the time I would have a group of 5th graders, generally speaking, they were kids that would move in from another county, and I was always excited. No 5th graders. You don't want to have, by then, they should be reading on grade level. It should be a good thing. But the other thing I'm really excited to see, and I know this has been a passion of Dr. Cashwell's from day one, is reading specialists. Mm-hmm. I mean, you look at what other counties, they have reading specialists, and we haven't. And so we're putting reading specialists in is, to me, key for what we need to be doing, not only supporting students, but teachers, and allowing for best practices. But I also saw 2 intervention coaches, and that's new. So if you can explain a little bit about what they'll be doing.
Again, our data is only good as the fidelity that it's taken, and we want to ensure that we have the support for those building principals and new positions that might come that look at data in elementary schools, so that they know how to go ahead and collect the data, how often are they reviewing the data, and what do you do with the data. Too often we will see a student who may be struggling a little bit, but we automatically jump to an assumption that there's just something wrong with the child. Well, maybe there was something wrong with the delivery of it. Maybe there was something that we need to go back and reteach. So they are going to be there for that fidelity's sake, and also be a sounding board for those teachers, because this is a new process. They have coaches, reading specialists in the building, so it'll be supporting them, but this will be another layer of support and fidelity as we go ahead and start to look at district-wide data so we can look for those trends. Where do we have some hot spots? Where do we need to allocate additional funding or support? So they are really going to be our boots on the ground, and they're going to be hustling around the county to make sure that this Tier 2 intervention is successful.
Well, and it's key because you talk to middle school teachers, and if they have students with reading problems, you go and look at where the elementary schools, where those middle schoolers came from, you will find the root of it. And you need a strong foundation before you're going to be successful in middle school, high school. I mean, I not long ago said to Reverend Cooper, if you can't read the test, our SOL test, whatever test assessment the kids are doing, if you can't read it, it's not a fair or accurate judge of what your abilities and knowledge are. And so to me, obviously, that's key because they use it every day. But using data to drive your instruction also, again, something that our seasoned teachers are, a lot of them do, but if you don't have the assessment that's informing you, then you're hitting that roadblock. So to me, huge deal. I went through the website. It is great. I really appreciate the fact that they're sharing that early. The bookcase project, talk about meeting kids really literally at the curb where they are to get books and making sure that parents and families have that. I thought that was great. One question I did have too was on the Haggerty curriculum. Is this a new reading series that what is this?
This is
one I'm not familiar with.
Yes, this is and I'm saying it correctly, a phonics-based phonemic awareness. Phonological awareness that we've had here in the county in different spots.
Okay.
And we've seen some very good results with the schools that had been using that. So we had enrolled that in this year in partnership with our newly written HCPS phonics curriculum as a support. So
Okay.
the two of those will go hand in hand.
Yeah, that's awesome. And well, more phonics bases, I'm all for that. But to me, when you said in the belief statements that were further on, we believe literacy is a key building block, our overall achievement, we're not satisfied with the minimum. And to me, raising the bar high for all students is what we should be doing. And I think that's what this really does. Just one little tagline for, last year we didn't have all Henrico reads. They canceled it. If we get the ability to do all Henrico reads next school year, I would love to see us do that in an even bigger way. Seriously, reading, book clubs, all of us doing it, and something intentional, something where kids see all the adults reading. I know a lot of the elementary schools, they take a break, whatever time during the day. Everybody in the building reads. Things like that where kids see that we're all still learning. And we talk about professional development for teachers. We talk about how the adults can learn, but the kids don't see that. But they need to see that we're all lifelong learners. We all continue to learn, no matter, being the oldest person up here, no matter how old we are, we still learned. But, I think we're on that path. I think it was Bev Cock years ago said, I want to see us be the reading county, the literacy county. And, we've tried several different things, but to me, this having the purpose and the goals, but the steps behind it for action to me is great. So thank you so much for all the work that you're doing. I know this is years in the making and lots of change, lots of training to get people online, but to Dr. Cashwell, because I know this has been a thing from day one, but to see it come to fruition, I'm very excited. So thank y'all so much for all of it. Okay, I'll take a breath now. I'm done.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Ogburn. Mrs. Shea.
Thank you. I apologize for how disjointed my questions and comments were. I was just so excited. I started writing all these things, so they're not in a very logical order. My apologies. But thank you again. Y'all have spent a lot of time at this podium in 2021, and so I appreciate all your work on all of these fronts. But this is truly the foundational, essential work in terms of instruction that we're going to be doing next year. And so I'm excited to see it. I know you talked about us all being champions of literacy. I think the biggest champion of literacy in our school division is our superintendent. As a former elementary school teacher and a former second grade teacher, she brings such good perspective on that, on how it is a cornerstone of not only students' academic progress, but kind of lifelong ambitions. And so we're always happy to have you, Dr. Cashwell, but this is just another reason that we're appreciative of the perspective that you bring. So looking at a couple of these things, I want to talk a little bit about the educational software. I know as a parent, I have seen during this year of digital learning, the positive impacts it's had for my own children, making sure they have things that are meet them where they are, if you will. But I have heard some concern from some parents in my district that coming out of this highly digital year, they're concerned that when we get back into the building, that everything's still going to be digital. And so when they hear that we're going to continue to use these digital resources, there's a lot of concern that that is going to replace direct small group instruction. So can you talk a little bit about the fact that it's not going to replace direct small group instruction, but also how they will be utilized in the classroom to give just some understanding?
Sure, I'll give the elementary perspective and then kick it off to my partner here. So at the elementary level, obviously we're jumping up to that 120 minutes. So that gives us about 60 minutes for whole group. So we would be able to do the phonics, the whole group standards, and then we have about 60 minutes for that guided reading so that groups could rotate through. And during that time, there'll be 3 20-minute segments. One of those would be a potential for a digital resource type of individualized session. So instead of what we had observed over the years, is we had some kids that were doing activities that may or may not have been going right, and the teacher didn't have time to be able to sit there and be with them. Those self-adaptive programs keep them focused and on track, and if they are not showing that pattern, then we can see that immediately, where before it was very hard to measure. And then we had an additional 20 minutes within that 60 where we have the ability for intervention, we have the ability for enrichment. So the way that Dr. Saunders has this set up, our students who need the most support will see the most adults during that time. That's not to say that our students that are doing well will not be supported. They will have other opportunities for more self-choice and things like that. And so that was the model that we set up at the elementary level.
And at secondary, we are excited to have some great digital resources that are implemented and included and written into our curriculum. So they're not standalone things that the students are working on that have nothing to do with the curriculum they're learning in the classroom. No Red Ink is embedded into our writing instruction. Newsella is what we use to have nonfiction passages for students that are on their reading level. And then our new program that will be Tier 1, 6 through 12 in English is our Into Literature. Primarily, we are excited about the student growth measure that we're getting for 6th through 12th grade. As a former high school English teacher, I would have loved to have known where my students were reading, because after 6th or 7th grade, we have not been getting a reading level on them. So we will have that to start out the year, and we will do that 3 times. We'll do it in the fall, the winter, and spring. But the rest of that program will be embedded into our themes. We purposely chose something that the program would not guide our themes, our curriculum would guide our themes and guide our performance tasks and activities that we were doing when we teach reading, writing, research, and communication together, not separately. But the thing I think we're most excited about in middle school is a targeted systemic intervention program for reading that has not existed before. So last week we met with the middle school principals and talked them through 2 options. They can follow the Henrico County model that we give them. They can also come up with their own plan that we vet and work through with them. Kendall's going to help us out with that. But all of that requires them to designate intervention time for students who need it and provide small group instruction from the teacher. It's not the program giving the intervention, it's the teacher giving the intervention. And we will be using Lexia Core as the digital resource that supplements that teaching. We have training planned through letters with University of Virginia to give our secondary teachers, select teachers, background in how students learn to read. Most secondary English teachers, ELA teachers, are not reading teachers. So they will be getting some very specific training on how do students learn how to read. And then we will be providing scripted lesson plans for that small group breakout, so teachers have the resources they need according to what the data says the student needs, whether it's sentence formation or vocabulary or fluency. We'll be able to separate them by need and do small group instruction with them.
Thank you so much. And I think most of the concern for this is coming at the elementary school level, but I certainly appreciate hearing about this new targeted approach for high school. And so, Mr. Dussault, again, thank you for just clarifying and reiterating this is not replacing direct teacher instruction. This would perhaps replace a rotation like roll a word or write your sight words in different colors, those sorts of things.
Correct. This is just a supplement.
Thank you. quite a few times in the presentation, including in the 5 main goals, you talked a little bit about utilizing diverse texts for our plan, and there's a lot of community misunderstanding about what that looks like. So can you just give us, either of you, just some examples of what you mean by diverse text?
So I'll start at the elementary level. We've made a sizable investment into Sora, the partnership tool that has the digital books that works with our Henrico library. And in doing so, for the last couple months, we've been working with our students at the K-5 level to really interview them, so to speak, take their opinions in terms of what types of text do you want to see on this platform that you can have access to. Because to us, the love of reading was a key factor into this diverse text. They need to see themselves. They need to see things that interest them. And we wanted to give them that ability so that when July 1 hits, we have our order ready to go, and we're going to have some very happy kindergarten through 5th grade students who are going to see books that they've selected. And that's just one sampling at the elementary level.
And at the secondary level, the focus has really been moving away from the whole class novel and making sure that students are reading texts that are of interest to them, that they positively see themselves in, that they're choosing, whether they're reading the books independently or reading them in small groups like literature circles, and then connecting that to their writing through their performance tasks. So we're trying to expose students to more literature more often, instead of we read these 5 books every year and we always have. We're moving away from that model and really listening to the voices of the students who say we want to read things that are current. We want to read things that are not always written by the same type of author. So they've been making a really concerted effort to put those variety of texts in the classroom so students have access during Drop Everything and Read. I think Ms. Ogburn mentioned that, but also as choices when we're teaching them skills, because we teach the skills of reading, we don't teach the text or the novel. We use the text to teach those skills.
And I will throw in one more piece here, and in working with our library specialists both last year and this year, Ms. Harden worked with all of her library specialists to make sure that they did a diversity analysis, and that was done through Follett, to identify where gaps in diversity could be within their programs and in their collections. And then orders were made based on that.
We also use that, I know Kendall and Erica used that when they were reviewing into literature to make sure that there was also a variety of text that would be available in that program.
Thank you so much. Mr. Dussault, you mentioned that this is not designed to be a how-to, but instead a framework. And so can you just explain that a little bit in terms of, I'll tee it up a little bit. All of our teachers, they're professionals. They are not plug and play. They are not reading a script. They are professionals that develop their courses and their love and fit it to the need of their students. So when we look at this as not a how-to, but a framework, can you share some ways that even though it's not a how-to, that our teachers will have all the resources on all the levels they need to plug in for their students?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that came up a lot during the committee meetings in terms of, look, we do not want a scripted do this, do this, do this. We wanted to be able to preserve that design, deliver, and assess creativity that teachers bring to the table, because that's truly where the relationship and the engagement begins. So what we were intentional on was the text that they would be potentially using for whole group. We wanted to make sure we were providing that to them. We wanted to make sure we were providing the targeted thinking questions that could go along with that, so they could make the selections and they could go ahead and identify how they wanted to deliver those. And then of course, when it comes time to the guided reading, yes, we absolutely have a framework of this is what you should be doing based on the students that you have there. But again, too, the strategies that we have taught these teachers and what they're going to continue to onboard with as the year moves on is just going to be additional tools in their tool belt until they truly feel like they can do this really without needing that support system.
Thank you. Let's talk a little bit about metrics. I know that a lot of this is intangible and hard to track, but it's also, I think, so important for us to have tracking so that when our students get to 3rd grade, we're not shocked that they're not on reading level, right? If we're going to get them there, I think we need regular pieces of data as they move along. And it sounds like you will have that with these pieces that you're going to be utilized. You had mentioned that some of the added metrics for the early elementary were going to be infused. So can you talk to me about what the verb infused means? Does it mean more part of the curriculum, or would these be additional pull-out testings like PALS and FMP?
Sure. So let me give you a more umbrella, broader sense, and then we'll kind of come down to that level there. And I'll bring up Dr. Saunders for that part. So again, Ms. Seeley and I have been talking about a way to capture all this data. So we've been combining forces and looking at performance matters to see, of all the various assessments that we have here in the district, how can we get those loaded in, and what would it look like on the user side, on the back end? Would an administrator be able to sort by subgroup? Could they sort by grade level? So that way we're very intentional with what we're looking for when we're looking at that data. So we're in the process right now working with the DARE department to see which tools and resources or assessments will work with that platform. Now, outside of that, yes, there is going to be the traditional PALs, SOLs, and such. And for the elementary side, let me bring up Dr. Saunders to talk a little bit more about the infused piece, because to me, this is the one that I get the most excited of and I keep running to her, ask questions about.
So we've taken a careful look at the assessments that we use, especially for those early literacy skills. And we've tried to adjust who is assessed, when they're assessed, and which assessments we're using so that we can better use that data to drive our instructions. For example, we're going to use a decoding inventory with our first grade students to get a better sense of where they are, rather than always relying on a guided reading level, because we really want to develop those foundational literacy skills. And we're choosing assessments that are going to give us that knowledge and that data that we can use to hone our instruction to meet those needs. And then in intervention, we have assessments that are built into our curriculum material so we can progress monitor and we can really see, is our intervention effective, and use that data to guide our decisions.
Thank you, that's helpful. Testing gets a bad name, and for a reason in some ways, because it's so easy just to say, oh, we want another piece of data, let's add another test, and we don't assess really like the bulk of work of the testing. And so I appreciate that you've taken a really detailed look at who, when, and how we're assessing, and trying to merge that in with the curriculum as possible. I think of the kindergarten teachers and how the whole first month or 6 weeks is all of these assessments before they can really get into instruction with their students. And I know that's hard, but we have to know where they are. And so, just ensuring that we're not adding more on their plate, more time away from building true instruction.
Yeah, and I'll jump in right there. And this was one of the great ideas that Dr. Saunders had, is we will start with a boost the first 2 weeks of the school year. So we're not just going to dump kids right into testing. We're going to be able to give kids who need the support right off the gate that early extra push. And we've been very intentional about where we space out these diagnostic assessments and how we carry over reading levels from the previous year, and where we would give a reading level so we can maximize instructional time. And that was very, very important to us as we designed this plan. Is you're right, we did not want to have testing and assessment become that oh gosh, it's my turn to do this again, as opposed to, hey, it's my turn to meet the goal. This is where I know I need to be, and I've been working with my teacher, and I've been working hard at home, and I'm going to hit my goal. And we'll turn assessment into something that is makes a student proud.
I love that. All right, just a couple more questions. As we develop this plan, are supports for dyslexic and dysgraphic students woven into this literacy plan?
So again, everything will start with the Tier 1 instruction. If a student is not successful in that Tier 1 instruction, obviously they would move into Tier 2, which is our intervention. If we are starting to see that over a period of time, we have students who are not being successful in Tier 2, and we have fidelity with that, and the data is flatlining, that is when we have additional conversations. We bring in a child find team, we do additional assessments, and then potentially we look at a Tier 3 intervention, or we look at some specialized instruction.
I think that's such an important part of the, as 1 in 5 of our students could be impacted by dyslexia, just targeting that at the beginning of their reading journey to provide them the supports. Let's talk writing. So in education, the pendulum swings back and forth. And I remember when I was in high school, we did writing across the curriculum, and we had a folder, and we would have the opportunity to do writing in each of our 7 classes and, file it away for different types of writing. So we saw a little bit about the writing across the curriculum, and which would be utilized mostly at secondary. I've heard a lot of feedback from parents and educators about the lack of significant writing composition in elementary school. And we know that that really synthesizes a lot of these pieces together of literacy and creativity and fluency. So what changes might we see in elementary for writing composition?
So another good question, and I think this goes back to our overall goal of life-ready literacy. We write for authentic purposes. When you think about what you do on a daily basis, how you communicate, that's important. So not that the writing across the curriculum is an old or an outdated idea. It's a very relevant idea today, because if you're in math, you do need to be able to communicate by writing. If you are in social studies and you're doing a performance task, you may have a portion of that where you need to directly communicate your thoughts in a certain way. So we're really going to work with our teachers over the summer and throughout the year to figure out the best ways to bring that out authentically with those performance tasks in the content areas. And it's not just the traditional pull your journal out and write about something vague. This is something that you are excited about, and it's authentically connected to the curriculum.
Thank you. And then my last question. As educators, I think particularly in the last couple of decades, we've seen a lot of initiatives, and they come and go. And sometimes we're over initiativized. It's this has an initiative and this has an initiative. And as soon as you catch on to one initiative, there's another initiative, and you don't even get time to see the progress from it before it changes. So what about this is different from just being another initiative that comes and goes? What about this, is built for success?
I think there's a couple factors. Number one, this kind of organically happened over the course of the year. And I'm not to say that we were forced into this, but we really did have to look at how we deliver reading instruction and what are the ways we assess reading instruction. And I think I'll also throw in the fact that this was really the first year that we had a true viable ELA curriculum at the K-5 level, which, not to say we did not have great things before, but I don't know if they were aligned and organized in a systematic way that teachers truly understood and could make meaning of. And that ongoing professional learning has been an absolute key. Teachers are excited about finding additional information or seeing how things work. And to say that there was not some hesitation, absolutely, there was some hesitation at first. It was in my own house as I had to explain why we have some of these resources, and we had great, interesting debates at the dinner table. But as time's moved on, we're starting to see those teachers have that light bulb moment, and they're seeing the progress that their kids are making because of this curriculum and these different assessment opportunities that show them where to go next with their learning.
Thank you so much. Well, I'm excited about this. I'm excited to see next year. Pre-COVID last year, I got to do individual one-on-one reading every week with kindergartners at one of my schools. So teachers and principals, I'm always available to do one-on-one reading with students because, like we said, it's such a foundational, and having a person to listen to reading makes a big difference. So thank you for all your work.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Shea. Mrs. Atkins?
So thank you to the Teaching, Learning, and Innovation Department, the Quality Department, and all involved in the effort of creating a culture that truly values literacy, as well as creating action plans on how to get to where we want to be in increasing resources for everyone, for staff as well as For students, I'm very excited about the targeted approach, moving away from the system that was designed many years ago to teach reading to everyone the same way, to now being more targeted on how we teach it and being unique with it. I think that's important. I also appreciate your response on diverse text and being truly authentic so that not only our children can see themselves in the books in the classroom, but the teachers as well. It's important to see your teacher get excited about reading a book that they themselves can see them in. It's important. I also went to the site, well done, LifeReady Literacy site. I don't know if that's the official name of it. That's what I've been using. Specifically on the Y page, I like the ease of understanding the use of colors and symbols, whether you're using the pie chart, the bar chart, and then the infusion of the table if you like text. I really like how it flowed. It was very easy to digest, so I wanted to give you that feedback. Has the team considered perhaps putting a chart on that page that summarizes reading per grade level and what that looks like per grade level? The more information that families can have, I think the better ideas that they can provide when it's broken out just a little bit more. So that's something for you to explore, research, and consider. Also, I love that great question of how can I help foster literacy? Mr. DeSalt, I remembered the term you use in being literacy leaders, and I love it. So I'm going to use it. With your permission. Again, I just think that's a great question. And the answer to that question has the potential to help many. Letting folks know that they are leaders in literacy, and then the answers to that question, okay, if I'm a leader, then how can I help foster that? So I have a recommendation for you. Perhaps thinking about how you can add some resources or tools to that page. I know that it, for the end user, for the person that's going to the site, is broken out by sub-pages per role, whether you're the teacher or the parent. But that one page, I think, makes a really big impact if we answer that question by providing additional supports like tools or resources or even links. Just in case that person doesn't get to the sub-pages that you have categorized under that main page. Again, just a recommendation for you to think about, and I know there's tons of research on moving from link and sites and clicks. So something to think about. Also, we have also mentioned in this time that children have real reasons and motivations for reading. Sometimes it's forced and sometimes it's for pleasure. So on that same page on how you can foster literacy, perhaps identifying those motivations on that page, giving videos, examples of clues to look for. As a parent, if you see your child looking and they constantly pick a book with red on it, that might be a clue as to what books to choose for pleasure reading to bring the fun back into it so that once they go into the school building, that child now knows how to pick books that they would like. So that's just another tool to perhaps put on the page. And then there's also some tools out there that will help in sort of integrating messages. So for example, I think there's a video, but talking about the author as well as the content of the book, that will connect that imagination to the real person. And then now we're getting to really having conversations where you can ask, why do you think the author is talking about that? And then understanding that, a child may not like the content or what the author is saying in the book, just like real life. You may not necessarily like that person, but everybody has a story, so it's important to read and listen. So I think that there's some tools out there that we can give those who visit the site on how they can actually be literacy leaders and look for those clues. So those are just a few recommendations. And then one last recommendation, I really love the site. I like the colors. The colors really spoke to me. If you could consider adding just some information on allowing families or reminding families, that's probably a better word, that you can actually maximize what's in your home, whether you're reading the labels and clothing, whether you're reading what's on the canned good in your cupboard, really maximize what's in your home. Again, just trying to find ways to change that culture to make reading fun again at home, so when you get in the classroom, it may not feel so heavy. So that's another maybe recommendation to place on the site. Is there a plan to share the results of this effort, and what does that look like?
So we had multiple conversations that we really wanted to present to you all first, so you had the ability to kind of unpack this in your own time and in way. We have been obviously doing a number of these within the buildings, and we have empowered our principals with nuggets, I call them, along the way during our principal meetings, explaining why we're doing some of what we're doing and how they can bring that back to the buildings. We would like to have a much greater presence, so to speak, when we get to August and into September through bridge builders and various ways of getting out in the community. And I think that's where the community partnerships, I think, are going to be really big. You know, the types of events that we have. And again, I will continue to go back to that love of reading. You know, we need everybody on board with this. And I think when we have this LifeReady Literacy Committee meeting on a regular basis, that is going to be one of their charges. How do we bring this to our families and to our homes and to all of our homes?
Yeah, I think when I went through the site, that message in my mind continued to repeat that before the child even gets into the building, how do we get them to love reading? And what's motivating that child to pick that book before they get into the building? So thank you for sharing that. And then also, what are the efforts around writing and reading cursive? I am learning from several high school students that they are struggling in reading cursive. They struggle in picking up books at Barnes & Noble where the author is writing in cursive to, you know, the preface before you get to the book. They are really struggling. So if you could share with me on our efforts on writing and reading cursive.
So cursive they're exposed to it at the end of second grade, and it is implicitly in the curriculum during third grade. And typically, you know, that is something that we have not had a lot of time, I would be honest with you, and it's an area for growth for us. And I think what we have to consider too is, you know, we don't want the cursive to become a detriment to writing. And students not wanting to write or all of a sudden get a fear of writing. So it's a delicate balance, but it's definitely an area that we, in fact, Dr. Saunders and I were talking about it earlier this week. It's something that we're going to have to revisit and then bring back to our teachers in a more authentic and targeted way.
Yeah, I'll share with you an experience of a student that was struggling and getting a bank account and having to sign his name. Yep. He could not sign his name in cursive. Cursive is important.
Yes, it is.
Writing it and reading it. And that was a senior. And it wasn't at the fault of the student. It's just that I think that somewhere, somehow, we've forgotten how important cursive is. It's as important as your name. So I am hopeful that we will learn more about the efforts on writing and reading cursive, particularly when students do go and open books and authors write in cursive. So I'm sure that's duly noted, so I'll stop speaking on that. And then the last piece is, while I absolutely love the site, what are the efforts for material that are not digital in sharing all of this wonderful information?
So that's something we can definitely talk about in terms of whether we have one-pagers that go home with parents that give an overview of this. I think the first step for us was to go ahead and get this out to you all and then reconvene that LifeReady Literacy Committee that is representative of various parts of the county and various roles in the county to see what might be the best plan of action moving forward. I do think that we've got the ability as summer moves along to continue to drop what I call those nuggets of information. So that's a potential way that we can start to kind of get this into the homes of our students.
Thank you so much. And again, kudos on the website. I really like the choice of colors. They're important. And I like the ease of use. And then with the glossary that's at the end, one recommendation I'll give you there is, well, it would be nice to have that printed out in the office, just a glossary of terms. I think that may be something for you guys to explore and share with families. So thank you so much.
Thank you for the feedback.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Atkins. Mrs. Kinsella, before I turn it over to you, can I allow Ms. Shea to have one follow-up question on the vein of what Ms. Atkins just asked?
Yeah, it'll be real quick. Following up on Ms. Atkins' cursive comment, I will give you feedback as the mom of a third grader this year that with COVID hitting last year right at March when they would have been starting cursive, and then this year being digital, that is a lost skill for that specific grade level and those specific students. And so just thinking about as we move to next year, or perhaps resources this summer for that specific grade level this year, figuring out how to fill that gap.
Thanks for the feedback.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Shea. Mrs. Kinsella, the floor is all yours.
Yes, thank you. And matter of fact, I'll just build on what Ms. Atkins and Ms. Shea said by repeating what Mr. Thornton on the Board of Supervisors says at every joint meeting we have had where I've served on this board, which is the importance of cursive writing. And I'm sure Ms. Ogburn, I think all of us agree of the importance of it. And you know, Mrs. Shea, your child is not the only child who I've seen actually miss cursive. While it has been in our curriculum, I do believe that those children who have needed more supports and remediation have not had the access and opportunity to have cursive because they needed other things more. What I would like to see as we move forward is us to find a way. I mean, I could tell you, as a mom, not all of my children can write their name in cursive, and they are products of Henrico County Public Schools. So I asked the team to figure out how we can better serve our students. But I started off with that, but that's not really where I wanted to start. But I appreciate my colleagues bringing forward the cursive, and then I'll go right into the writing since we're right there. And I will be brief. When did the 5th grade writing SOL disappear?
Has it been 3 years?
It's been a while.
Yeah, because if we know the answer to that, then I believe we know the group of students that we need to support. And I'll just leave that right there because I do think we have work to do before we go cross-curricular with all these things that students have to write. I know I've seen it, and I've heard about it during the pandemic when we're in the 4th quarter and some students are just so unmotivated and barely hanging on by a thread. Some of our students don't know how to write. So they see all this writing cross-curricular, which I support, but so many of our students are not equipped. So I would ask the team, Dr. Cashwell, to really look at those efforts to assess where all of our students are K-12, so that no one falls through the gaps while they're still in Henrico County Public Schools. I would like to circle back and say, you know, I really do appreciate the work on this presentation. So many pieces of it, my colleagues have touched on the elementary piece, so many things of it, but I'd really like to focus on the secondary piece, because while I think I heard middle school supports, I don't think I heard any high school supports, and correct me if I'm wrong, if it's in the plan that I haven't gone all the way through in terms of detail, but I'm worried about those students. And I'm also concerned about those supports because I know when we added reading specialists, I believe those are at the elementary level. Are they not?
That is correct.
We have secondary literacy coaches.
Secondary is in middle school and high school, or middle school?
Some high schools have English teachers who are certified reading specialists and are used to support reading that way, but not employed separately as reading specialists.
Okay, then I would just ask for us to look at, do we have enough supports at the secondary level as we move forward? Because I'm certain that if we had some of these, we have missed opportunities from some of our elementary students that then move through middle and now may be in high school or going into high school. If we could just look into that and make sure we have the resources to meet those needs. And then I'll also share that in response to our literacy plan being out online, I did hear from those who actually have expertise in reading, teaching reading at the secondary level. And they asked me to put forward, what is the plan for supporting teachers who it's not their specialty or it's not their expertise? What is the plan for supporting their professional development beyond, I think, the one-pager you mentioned for cross-curricular? What does that PD look like? What does that training look like beyond this summer? And that's not necessarily an answer for right now for me, but I did want to put that forward. And I'm so glad to hear that instruction time will not be lost due to all the assessing. And now I'll turn my focus to remediation. Exactly what are we changing about the way remediation is done? In elementary school, you said having the teachers, the classroom teachers teach the remediation and the interventionists.
So let me explain that a little bit. So historically, what we've done at the elementary level is students who are identified for intervention support, what they would do is they would typically leave the classroom in the majority of our schools for about a 30-minute pullout. And you would have a very diverse group of students, some who needed more phonics and decoding, others that needed more work with their fluency and comprehension, but they would all be together at the same time. And what we're doing this year is, instead of pulling all of the kids out into one large group, we're pulling the kids and grouping them based on their area of need. And instead of a actual interventionist pulling out, the teacher in most cases will be delivering the intervention, and the term interventionist, which I think we're going to be switching the term to reading facilitator, will be coming into the classroom, and they will have a choice menu of activities that they could do with an additional group. So it is potentially there that you will have a student who just had guided reading, who may have just gotten intervention support from the classroom teacher, and then you have a reading facilitator. So there's opportunities for them to have a significant amount of support. And that was our goal in being able to close gaps quickly, especially after coming off of this year. And in doing so, the building principal will be making those decisions about, am I going to utilize the teacher in that role as the interventionist, or the person coming into the classroom, will they be delivering that intervention? We wanted to leave it up to the building.
Okay, and then at the secondary, middle school, what is, at least at the middle school level, because you already know my concern about the high school level. What does it look like in the middle school? Please tell me, are students going to be double blocked?
That is up to the principal to decide how they will schedule for students who need intervention. We offered them 4 different ways they could schedule it. So you could double block, and the same teacher would deliver Tier 1 instruction that would deliver the intervention. You could schedule those students for a separate reading elective. So they'd have one teacher for Tier 1 ELA and one teacher for reading intervention. You could have one class, which is primarily Tier 1, but some of that block would be broken down into small group instruction, where those students who needed intervention would get it. They would get enrichment if they needed it. They would more of a rotation through a small group. The 4th option, which is not the best option, would be through student advisory. But that time really needs to be spent on social emotional learning and connecting with students. So we are highly discouraging principals from choosing that one. It also gives teachers an extra prep if they do it that way. So really we're asking them to choose what best fits their community and their needs based on their Tier 1 data, or their Tier 2 data. So schools who might have more Tier 2, you might see more double blocking. That's our primary. That would be my preferred choice, that they double block. If they're going to do the reading elective, there needs to be really careful planning between the 2 teachers so that there's good reinforcement of both. So what you heard in Tier 1, you hear in Tier 2, and vice versa, so the students aren't confused. And then that Tier 2 intervention will be very structured. with the teachers delivering the primary portion of that. In the past, I think there's been a lot of use of product for Tier 2. When I was the secondary English specialist here several years ago, there was a focus on, are we using Read 180? Are we using, what are we using? Well, the product can't deliver the intervention. The product can support that, which Lexia Core will, but it's the teacher who needs to be trained to deliver the intervention based on the skills that the students are lacking, not just, oh, today everybody's getting phonics intervention. It depends on what the individual students need.
No, and I appreciate you saying that too, because it comes back to other concerns that I've heard just about the reliance. I believe another colleague had talked about it, the reliance on all the digital that, our teachers do enjoy teaching and providing the individualized instruction to our students. So it's nice to hear even at the secondary, even at the secondary level, we will not just be relying on our digital resources.
Absolutely.
And then how will we ensure, as to the data and the monitoring that Mrs. Shea mentioned, how will we ensure the plan with coaches and specialists is working? Like that the supports that our teachers and staff need, we're gonna monitor and assess our students a lot, it would seem. So how are we going to monitor if our plan is working?
I mean, I can take that from we have a very specific process that we're using for the middle school intervention, starting with the principal identifying which area they'll be delivering, which students, and then submitting their plan to us. And we will have progress monitoring by our specialist.
Okay.
Ms. Hunt will be monitoring that. And we'll be meeting with the schools on a quarterly basis to check in and see, what's working. We'll be doing learning walks to see whether the instruction has been done with fidelity. We, through school quality, are getting ready to put out an overall progress monitoring process as part of our school quality process. So not just how do you monitor progress and intervention, but how do you do that in the Tier 1 classroom? How do you do that with math? So we're putting together a progress monitoring process, protocol, so to speak, for principals to follow. And then following up in terms of trend data. So we will be starting a division level school quality team that meets monthly and is looking at the trend data across the division so we can see, okay, we need professional learning on this aspect across the division, or we really have this isolated area that we need to put resources to. But we'll have lots of folks from the Division of Learning and the Division of School Leadership looking at that data regularly and talking about where do our resources need to go in terms of if it's financial or human resources, but that'll be the first time where we look at that school quality data systemically on a monthly basis.
No, and I appreciate you addressing that question because, of course, we are always focused on our students, but if we don't also focus on the partnership that supports our students, then we're not doing what we should be doing, right? So thank you, because it wasn't necessarily how are we going to ensure that our coaches and specialists are held accountable. That's not what it is.
Right.
It's, do they have what they need to be successful? Because if they don't, then our students don't. So thank you for answering that. And then getting ready to wrap up, who's on the literacy committee? Is it the same folks who are on the steering committee?
So what we wanted to do was to get this presentation off the ground and then circle back and decide who do we want to bring in for this LifeReady Literacy Committee. And then as that be the umbrella, our coaches, our interventionists, and then kind of funnel down. So how is that information going to be funneled out? And with the help of you all today, we have our first agenda already in place with a whole bunch of action items. So we appreciate that.
And then lastly, I'll just close with, slide 11. All students will read on or above level by 3rd grade. That I am very hopeful for those students who are not yet in 3rd grade. And that I challenge us to do the very best we can for all those students we still have a lot of opportunities for those students, and especially in middle school and high school. Thank you very much for all of your work on this.
Thank you so much, Ms. Kinsella. Ms. Ogburn, you have a redirect?
Just a real quick follow-up on what you were telling Ms. Kinsella about how intervention works. To me, that was the perfect connecting of the dots, because you said it's going to be data, you're going to assess, and then instruction will be data-driven, and the assessments will drive instruction. If you're bringing the interventionists into the classroom and it's a small group and they're going to work on a particular thing, I can see, for example, across first grade, you might have a group that comes together for this particular skill instruction, and that really drills down to what kids need to support them. I mean, because I've had kids over the years that had certain little things that needed to be assessed and remediated, and then they moved on, and it was the light bulb moment. This works now, and so they would. And so, to me, that's very targeted instruction and so essential for not getting bogged down and having years and years of instruction before possibly you get to that thing the kid needs. So I'm really glad to hear that's what our interventionists might be needing. I mean, over the years, I think the interventionists have changed names a number of times. So it's going to be interesting if you land on facilitator or whatever it is y'all land on. Because when I started, it was a prime teacher, if you remember. And so I'm going back a ways, but still it changed while I was an interventionist. But it's going to be interesting to see how they can get in the classroom more, which I think is essential. So I appreciate you explaining more. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. So, there's some terms I could use about that slide being on the screen right now at this particular point, but I'm going to leave those terms out. But it's amazing because the first statement on my question piece is Destination 2025 outcome students will have literacy and numeration skills for academics and life. All students will read on or above grade level by third grade. You're seeing that, aren't you, Michelle? I have that written, and I guess Ms. Celia, as the dialogue you and I had last time, I've been waiting to see this and read it, and I'm very thankful for it because I always have with me, on a subconscious level, the whole literacy skills and incarceration rates, right? So 85% of all juveniles who interface with the juvenile court system are functionally low literate. That's proven. And so it's obvious and evident that we are doing this, that you have titled this what you have. LifeReady Literacy Plan shows our commitment in dismantling the school to prison pipeline through literacy. And so I just want to say that because we know it's not a myth. We do know that third grade, is a barometer, and it's used to be a predicator of, future possible, incarceration rates. So, and it disproportionately affects African-American males. I mean, let's be real. So you didn't put that in there, but I'm glad that we're stressing that our goal is all students will read on or above grade level by third grade. So Ms. Ogburn, I'm excited, also enthused, as well as I'm sure all our peers are as well, concerning the steering committee, because it's imperative and important that we engage our numerous community leaders, members, and partners. And this is just a side note. I was appreciative recently to assist a community partner called Black Men Read. And its president, Mr. Demetrius Frazier, by purchasing, me personally, culturally relevant, age-appropriate books and donating them to the students of Fairfield Middle School. This group and Mr. Frazier just recently teamed up with the librarians at Fairfield and Brooklyn to provide home libraries to students, bookcases, and again, culturally relevant and age-appropriate books. So that's so important. Back to the presentation that you all gave in March, I requested a breakdown of the literacy data per school so it can show the schools with the highest needs where additional resources need to be targeted. Don't know, I'm sure you don't have it today, but I would love to get that just so I could see it. I'm sure we all would, just to have an idea. And so I will just make sure that on slide 14, the 15 reading specialists, what schools will they be based out of? It's how do we determine which schools got those 15 reading specialists?
So what we did in partnership with the Division of School Leadership is we ensured that every school now has at least part-time reading specialists. So we have some specialists that are going to be split between 2 different schools, and we did that based on area of need, and we had a matrix, so to speak, to be able to determine where the best fits are for those reading specialists, as I get the term correct. So that way every school has reading support this year. Now, schools like Title I schools, they have still their Title I teachers in addition to that support, so they can meet the need at those particular buildings.
That's awesome. So, I mean, that's very informative. So thank you for clarifying that and just adding to it. Also, go to slide 14 if you could. Quick question. The Henrico Phonological Awareness Curriculum. This focuses on phonetic awareness, I'm aware of. Could you just speak kind of briefly to how it's designed to support our nonverbal or minimally verbal students, our deaf and hard of hearing students, and our ELL students?
Sure. I'm going to bring Dr. Saunders up for that one. Come on up.
So the Henrico curriculum is all oral. So it's oral manipulation with active hand movements to make it really engaging for our youngest learners as they develop these skills. Never used to talking in a microphone. So for the English language learners, it's going to support them as they're developing English language because it focuses on manipulating sounds, isolating sounds, segmenting sounds, blending sounds. So it helps them with their English language acquisition from that phonetic standpoint. Mm-hmm. For the students with hearing impairments, mm-hmm. It would probably not be the best fit for those students, and we'd have to adapt it to meet their needs because it is done orally.
Okay. So I'm sure we're going to compensate for that, probably use another. I see Ms. Hughes keeps nodding her head. So I just was wondering, based upon what the designation of that curriculum was, how it would be applicable to those students in that particular population. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
During the March presentation, I stated that I would like for us as divisions to somehow provide learning, training opportunities for our parents, guardians, caretakers who may struggle with reading so they can provide that continued reading literacy support to their children at home. If possible, could you all speak to any plans for support to our families to help reinforce learning at home?
And are you looking at supporting parents in terms of working with their children with literacy?
Correct, at home. Like what, again, so let's be honest, there's some grandparents or parents or guardians who may not be as proficient themselves. So I'm charged with the continuum of the school-home partnership, right? Sure. So I'm not as proficient. How can we help that household to be able to reinforce learning at home?
Yeah, and I would say our first, and I want to say, line of support would be the classroom teacher. They are the folks who are with these students day in and day out. They know where their opportunities for growth are, and they know what motivates them in terms of literacy or writing. So I would start with them. If the teacher is struggling with that, I would definitely reach out to the administration in that particular building for some additional support. But one thing that we did last year as we went into summer is we put together, I don't want to know if it's a site or a package for different levels of literacy for parents. And those were on our EdFlix site. And they talked about, just like Ms. Atkins talked about, these are some things you can do throughout the house in terms of looking at opportunities for reading, or when you're out and about at the grocery store, or those types of things. And it also gave them some very parent-friendly language in terms of how do you support them when they're reading, getting them to read a book. Well, how do you make a good selection? So I think that's something we could easily put out there again as we head into summer and really put a focus to that. I don't know how much they were utilized, and it sounds like if folks are not aware that they're there, that's something we need to put a broader spotlight on.
No, Matt, I think that the statement you just made, the last statement says that there's intentional effort that we're going to even do more because, for those households that are not going to take advantage of our summer learning opportunities, we know going in that we have, we don't even know the actual percentage of learning loss, right? We don't know coming out of this year. It's been a challenging year. And as we, I don't want us to lose focus on what has taken place and transpired this year because we're so excited about what's going to happen in September. Because from the beginning of the pandemic to now, a lot of children have struggled, a lot of households have struggled. And so just want to try to make sure, because that's a segue into my last kind of statement. The last few slides of your presentation, again, thank you so much for the attention to detail and just the plan. I'm excited. And I'm just, in my mind, thinking of ways to even disseminate it and give opportunities for feedback, because this is something that our community needs to see, needs to be able to speak to and be a part of. But you spoke specifically about closing the learning gaps and instructional partnerships. And I just want to emphasize the importance of consistent monitoring of intervention effectiveness as we continue to measure progress and respond to any learning gaps for our students across all schools. That's going to be so key. And I know Ms. Kinsella kind of alluded to that, and I kind of concur, but I just think that's going to be so important. And I thank you, Ms. Seeley, for kind of giving a framework of, your processes. And it's very detailed from boots down to high level up. So, but I just want to emphasize that. So again, thank you both so much. Thank all three of you for just being here today and sharing this presentation. Madam Superintendent.
All right. Thank you, board members, for your excellent questions and feedback. I think we've covered well that LifeReady Literacy is a priority for the school division, for the board and our staff, as we have always had that as an area of focus, but we'll be ever more laser focused on being responsive to literacy needs. So huge kudos, thanks again to Dr. Hughes, Mr. Dussault, Mrs. Seeley, Dr. Saunders, and everybody else who's been involved in this tremendous effort. We're really excited. All right, so the next item is my seeking of acceptance of our Henrico Education Foundation Grant Award, which is totaling $104,224 for our Cycle 2 for the 2020-2021 school year.
Is Mike Taylor here?
He is.
I made the mistake of saying you were here when you weren't, so I'm sorry, brother. I just wanted to make sure you're here. And if I'm not mistaken, Madam Superintendent, that impacts over 8,000 people. And so we are excited about that.
Absolutely. And again, while whether Mr. Taylor is here with us or not, he's always a force behind the scenes and in partnership with our school division, supporting us in so many ways. So echo our continued thanks for the foundation.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. Again, good to see you, Ms. Taylor. Is there a motion to accept the HEF Grant Award?
So moved.
Been moved by Ms. Ogburn. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Atkins. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. The grant has been accepted.
Mr. Chair, if you don't mind,
Yes,
I will
ma'am.
echo my appreciation to to Mike Taylor and to the HEF board. It's just such a hardworking group, and I'm the board rep for the HEF board, so I see that in every meeting, and even during the pandemic, it has been amazing what has been able to be accomplished. And so their work is ongoing, that innovative and national accolades. Mike and I sat in on a national conference. It is amazing, the work that you're doing, but thank you. And I'm wearing my HEF mask today. Had to do it. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ogburn. Madam Superintendent.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Next, I'm recommending that the school board accept federal grant funding in the amount of $14,719,930.
Is there a motion to accept federal grant funding in the amount of $14,719,930?
So moved.
Been moved by Ms. Shea. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Kinsella. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the ayes have it. The grant has been accepted.
Thank you. I'm also recommending that the school board accept the Head Start American Rescue Plan funding to increase our amount to $205,798. Specifically, this funding will offer an opportunity for playground equipment at Holiday Elementary School, particularly to serve the increase in our number of pre-K students there, as well as a coordinator position focused on pre-K data and resource implementation and other program needs.
Thank you so much. Is there a motion, Ms. Kinsella, Kinsella to accept the Head Start American Rescue Plan.
So moved.
I got to finish the motion. That's all right. Funding increase in the amount of $205,798.
Absolutely, so moved.
It's been moved by Mrs. Kinsella. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms.
Well, I'll do it, yeah.
Ms. Ogburn. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. The funding has been accepted.
Thank you. Also recommending the school board accept the Every Student Succeeds Act Summer 2021 mini grant for Rolfe Middle School in the amount of $21,651.68 to support the summer development of math lesson plans, teacher professional development, and also some reading resources.
Is there a motion to accept the ESSA Summer 2021 mini grant for Rolfe Middle School in the amount of $21,651.68?
So moved.
It's been moved by Mrs. Atkins. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Kinsella. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the ayes have it. The grant has been accepted.
Thank you. Also recommending the school board accept the Every Student Succeeds Act Summer 2021 mini grant for Wilder Middle School in the amount of $14,400 to provide funding for some reading digital resources.
Is there a motion to accept the ESSA Summer 2021 mini grant for Wilder Middle School in the amount of $14,400?
So moved.
Been moved by Ms. Ogburn. Is there a second? Seconded by Mrs. Shea. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the ayes have it. The grant has been accepted.
Thank you. One more grant for your consideration is my recommendation that the school board accept another ESSA, or Every Student Succeeds Act Summer 2021 mini grant for Fairfield Middle in the amount of $14,400 for funding for digital reading resources.
Is there a motion to accept the ESSA Summer 2021 mini grant for Fairfield Middle School in the amount of $14,400?
So moved.
Been moved by Mrs. Atkins. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Kinsella. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the ayes have it. The grant has been accepted.
Thank you very much. For our next item, pleased to be able to bring you an update on the school division's family and community engagement efforts, including some information on the full-service community school model. And here to provide this update and information is Adrienne Cole-Johnson, our Director of Family and Community Engagement.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Cashwell. Greetings, Chairman Cooper and members of the board. As Director of Family and Community Engagement for Henrico County Public Schools, I am truly excited to stand before you this afternoon. During this time, I will provide departmental updates to include deeper insight on our family and community engagement work and model, as well as provide insight on our community school and full-service community school approach. Also, in advance, I will be using FACE interchangeably with family and community engagement. FACE is a welcomed acronym and nickname for our department, yet also speaks to how we view our role as a friendly and first-line face for so many of our families, students, and partners. So what is unique about our department is that we affect change in varied and dynamic ways throughout the school division, whether considering safety and wellness, equity, diversity, and opportunities, academic growth, or of course, relationships. The cornerstones for our strategic plan are essentially cornerstones for FACE. Here we've listed 3 of the strategic plan goals that speak directly to the work and outcomes of our department. Our vision is one of warm and welcoming environments that ensure our students and families are healthy, happy, and whole. And our commitment is that we build, bridge, and boost engagement to make that vision a reality. The simple yet effective strategies of our department serve as a connector to our efforts as they weave together the work of not only my team, but every stakeholder, family members, community members, staff, leadership, and of course, students that understand the importance and benefits of intentional engagement. Building resource-rich school communities, bridging high-impact collaborations and partnerships, and boosting transformative family engagement is our commitment. I will walk us through this lens by telling the story of where we have been and where we are going. So it may seem odd for me to start with numbers here, yet it's important to include the economic influence of our efforts in support of the impact that has taken place or better yet, is still taking place. Henrico Education Foundation, as we mentioned Mike Taylor and his team earlier, has been gracious enough to share numbers to date regarding fundraising efforts that have supported our students and families that have needed us the most. This Emergency Response Fund began March 13th of 2020 and has continued to support the ability of HCPS to provide necessary and basic needs throughout the district. And while this is a very significant number, the total contribution through the foundation is much higher, over $1.3 million in support to schools. The numbers on the screen highlights efforts that FACE has directly supported over the course of the pandemic, which spans the past and current fiscal year. Various events of 2020 placed many of us at risk of certainty, and quite honestly, it has exposed cracks in the floor and in the walls of our systems on every level, from local to global. Food insecurities, household bills, and even virtual learning basics for Wi-Fi have been a concern. Yet we have been able to offer significant help for Henrico students and families. So what does this mean, and what has this looked like for our engagement efforts? This looked like an ability to build resource-rich relationships by centering our focus on our most vulnerable families and marginalized communities, by not only showing an interest in their basic needs, but by being committed to working alongside our students and families in partnership with so many to help find a solution to those needs. A special mention to Dana Whitney, Director of School Nutrition, Brian Maddox, Director of Technology, and Dr. Monica Manns, Chief Equity, Diversity, and Opportunity Officer, as I reflect on the countless times we connected around three questions: what do we do, what can we do, and how do we do it? This was our agenda for quite some time and continues to be the question I ask of myself and my team as we deepen our work with an equitable engagement lens. The numbers listed on the previous slide equate to the impact numbers you see listed here. The over 15,000 food bags were a huge lift, and leveraging our relationship with Monica Smith-Callahan and our colleagues at Henrico County Government were significant to this work. Our ability to identify families to receive crisis fund stipends of $500 provided significant impact in their lives, yet helped our FACE team with building trusting relationships despite the pandemic. And as we continue to manage the Internet Essentials program, the appreciation from our families is never ending. We continue to provide $100 grocery gift cards whenever a need arises. FACE regularly manages these requests from staff, and we will continue to do so as long as the resource is there. This is similar to the Internet Essentials program, that while most families who needed the support have already been connected, we still have staff that are contacting our department as these types of technology supports arise. With regards to our school-based efforts to build relationships, our family advocates take the lead. They are the heartbeat of our department, serving as bridge builders to so many stakeholders. Resource coordination, regular communication with families, and simply serving as a trusted, caring, and consistent liaison are just some of the ways our advocates show up to build relationships in their school community. I'd love to give a special mention to our family engagement coordinator, Deborah Ringgold, who is a strong support for our lead advocates. They are my internal leadership team, ensuring our school-based advocates feel supported and well-connected in order to do their job effectively. Bridging high-impact partnerships and collaborations is a critical component of our ability to successfully engage with families. As the saying goes, it takes a village, and the role of FACE is to make it easier for families to engage in our district, through our department, with our schools. This school year has afforded us time to outline priorities for managing these relationships in order to scale and increase them, all while being focused on high-impact partnerships. There are countless partners that come to mind when considering the types of relationships that are most beneficial to our students and families. I'm sharing a few logos on the screen of nonprofits and organizations that are directly connected to our family and community engagement efforts. However, the list is endless. Communities in Schools is doing significant work in some of our secondary school communities, providing additional case management and wraparound services for our students. SCAN works closely across several divisions, leveraging staff for our trauma-informed, resilience-focused initiatives. HCC PTA continues to live into their motto of every child, one voice, with their commitment to advocacy and access for students and families. Under the leadership of current President Debbie Long, we've been able to partner with HCC PTA to provide an electronic local services resource list that is highlighted on their website. On the school level, there are faith partners, local businesses, PTA and PTO groups, and even alumni stepping in consistently to make a difference. Beginning the 2020-2021 school year, family advocates have been asked to identify at least 5 to 8 sustainable partnerships in their respective school communities. And quite honestly, it has been humbling to see this work unfold. Hearing the stories of change and connection reminds me that we are on the right track. Just as important as our external partnerships are the internal and cross-departmental collaborations that are taking place. And while I've listed a few, I'm certain I have not covered them all. Family and community engagement seeks to model the changes and outcomes that we would like to see within HCPS and in Henrico County. So through regular collaboration with others, we are able to show how collective impact provides increased successful outcomes. In collaboration with McKinney-Vento, we have provided very intentional outreach to our families. To support our Henrico Heroes mentoring program, we provided direct insight and guidance regarding family engagement approaches for coordinators and mentors. And exceptional education comes to mind as we are frequently connecting to reinforce communication with families as needed. So as I round out this section on bridging partnerships, I've made my way back to this slide. It tells a quiet story that is worth sharing. You see the same number, yet the percentages are broken down by contributions. I love to hone in on the 6%. While it's the lowest number regarding percentages, it's the highest number with regards to involvement. This 6% includes 871 individual donors that have donated over $125,000 to support students and families. 90% of these contributors were first-time contributors. This is intentional, this is high impact, and this is a county that cares for each other. So if we haven't said it enough, thank you to our neighbors that pour into our schools. The very centralized efforts of family engagement must be transformative. Our Family and Community Engagement Department has adopted the National PTA's Center for Family Engagement model in identifying important aspects for contributing to our school communities. By attending to the 4 I's of transformative family engagement, the goal is to always be inclusive, individualized, integrated, and impactful. Linked to learning events and engagement points allow stakeholders to feel connected to what is happening in schools. It also helps staff to feel supported and more capable of meeting student needs. As a department, the bulk of our family engagement has taken place through our Bridge Builders Academy. The Bridge Builders Academy was rebranded in February of 2020 to include intentional learning strands that would be helpful for varied stakeholders. Beyond the Classroom is a place to highlight many of the whole child, whole family, and whole community topics that frequently arise, while the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion strand seeks to provide a safe space to discuss many topics that arise. Our Exceptional Education strand builds from growing partnerships across departments, where our Family and Educator Resource Center facilitator, Alexis Sims, serves as a liaison and advocate with connecting parents and families to answers needed. Our 4th strand is focused on information, access, and opportunity. Ensuring the right to achieve and succeed is afforded to all, but ensuring parents are in the know and aware of the many opportunities presented through HCPS. Figuring it out alone can be overwhelming, so the goal of Bridge Builders is to help our community by providing responsive and timely insight and information. Each of you have attended and participated in the Bridge Builders Academy in some way. Thank you. We've provided over 40 workshops since inception, with an average of 10 each quarter or semester. Pivoting to a virtual platform was advantageous for us, as we were able to engage with a much larger audience. As COVID guidelines adjust, we are returning to a hybrid approach this summer and look forward to meeting families where they are in order to provide the insight and information that is most helpful. I wanted to call out our work with the Welcome Center. What you are reading is a quote from Sarah Modrak, our Welcome Center supervisor and education specialist. Our collaboration has focused on boosting language justice for our English language learner families. Through Bridge Builders, we've been able to target efforts for our top 5 requested languages. And under the leadership of Andy Jinks, our Chief of Communications and Community Engagement, we have worked more intently on language barriers by increasing translated documents. So again, while we are segmenting our work into 3 simple words, the effort is great, and it is not a feat for one person, one group, or one department. Build, Bridge, Boost is a school district model that we are scaling alongside a national framework. This is the framework of community schools that identifies 4 pillars and 8 themes to focus efforts for positive student outcomes. I will now transition the presentation into updates regarding the HCPS approach to community schools. These pillars are all aspects that are prominent and seen throughout our district, and our intention is to bridge efforts throughout this model. I'll break up my talking with an informative video that describes what community schools are all about.
What makes a school a great school? Caring for the whole child. Expanding the horizons of learning. Building relationships with families. Working together to realize a shared vision. This is the school every student needs. This is a community school. Community schools are public schools that partner with stakeholders to create the conditions students need to thrive. Community schools can be found across the United States, and their numbers are growing fast. But what exactly makes a school a community school? They integrate student supports. Clinics, counselors, and other services ensure each and every student is ready to learn. They expand and enrich learning. Extended school days, summer programs, and real-world experiences help students reach their full potential. They engage families and communities. Partnering with residents to identify and meet community needs makes everyone feel safe, welcome, and involved in school. They lead in collaboration. Inclusive decision-making and peer learning builds trust among students, educators, families, and communities. When a school stands on these 4 pillars, it's a community school. Research supports this 4-pillar approach, but there's no one-size-fits-all model. Every community school is different because each community is different. Figuring out what it looks like in your community starts by getting actual community members involved. That's the full-time job of community school coordinators. They're the human bridge connecting all the partners and stakeholders that make community schools possible. So that's what makes a school a community school.
All right. Give me a second. There we go. So I hope that video gives you a glimpse of where Henrico is headed and quite frankly, where we are. I'm sure that several schools within our division came to mind as you imagine what this looks and feels like. As we are applying this strategy with our school communities, we started with our community learning centers, or our CLC sites. Allowing these schools to be models for how this effort comes together is helping us to understand the similar yet unique needs of our school communities. As it stands, all community school sites have a 21st century extended day program. To ensure this effort is supported, our 21st century coordinator, Marcy Gould, who is sitting in the back, thanks for being here, Marcy, serves as a liaison between direct service providers and school leadership. Each site also receives staff support from our trauma-informed care specialist, Amy Johnson, who is a SCAN employee that works within HCPS. A family advocate is positioned at each site and is front and center with family and community engagement efforts. Each school also has an active collective impact committee led by Japira Keys, our family and community engagement impact coordinator. These committees are comprised of various stakeholders that have one goal in mind: to ensure that our students thrive. From there, each school has site-specific programs that make our schools unique. I'd love to mention Virginia Handsome, our resource and enrichment coordinator, that is focused on growing partnerships and ensuring awareness of what opportunities are available. The community school model truly provides a strategy and framework to guide our work. Our vision is that Henrico County Public Schools becomes a community school district with full adoption of this whole school, whole child model. The goal is to have at least one full-service community school in every district to create a hub and spoke approach. Full-service community schools are known to provide on-site supports for students, families, and community members, bringing resources closer to home. We know the proximity to care and resources is often a concern. So as Highland Springs High Schools moves into their new building, there is great opportunity to bring this hub and spoke community school model to life. Culinary spaces, meeting rooms, even a full-service health clinic are all realistic features for the full-service community model. As shared earlier, we have a great grasp on the strengths, needs, and opportunities of our school communities. This hub and spoke model will expand our reach and ability to connect with students, families, and community. Exploration of this model began years ago, before the pandemic, with site visits to full-service community schools in Utah, Ohio, and Tennessee. We've activated this effort through strategic planning, staffing support, and department support. Through generous support from HEF, we are currently under a strategic planning process to outline the foundation and details of the effort. HEF is also supporting our family advocates that are currently housed in our community schools by adding an additional month to their contract, beginning August 1. This will allow additional time for advocates to support with the creation of family engagement plans and approaches. Lastly, the repositioning of various team members is affording our department and school division the ability to build and grow from a strong foundation. As we continue the exploration phase, Henrico Education Foundation is prepared to sponsor additional site visits to full-service community schools. This will help to guide and craft our approach alongside other full-service community school models. While cursory internal planning has begun, the community engagement efforts around this project will really begin this summer. My goal is to ensure this initiative is collaborative and empowering with each step, and that will happen by listening and connecting with community. Community walks and in-person connections are just some ways we will plan in collaboration. Stakeholder surveys will also provide an efficient communication loop as we are building our hub and spoke model. So as I round out my time before you, and as we continue to imagine what our school communities may look like, I'd love to close us with a few words from my colleague, Joy Reed, principal from Ratcliffe Elementary. I requested a quote about her work with her family advocate regarding engagement at her school, and her words spoke volume. I've shared a bit of her comments on the screen, but would also like to share the following from her quote. Mrs. Leslie McGuinn, who is her family advocate, has served as Ratcliffe's family advocate since 2018. Over the course of the last 3 years, she's tripled our community partnerships from 3 to 12, collaborated to double our parent involvement in school activities from 15 to 30 and more prior to the pandemic, and has implemented a multitude of initiatives to support family and community engagement within our school. All of what Mrs. McGuinn does is directly correlated to our VSIP plan and school goals. She has made community partnerships a priority in her daily task. Our community partners have supported our community at large. They have provided meals, student incentives, school supplies, books, clothes, teacher morale boosters, and so much more. One major way that Leslie has utilized the support of our community partners is by having them adopt a grade level. Each grade level, pre-K through 5, and including exceptional education classes, have been adopted by a community partner. These adoptions have allowed our students and teachers to feel supported in individual grade level projects and daily learning. Our teachers are very grateful for their partners. It helps ease the worry of funding to complete activities or motivate students. Mrs. McGuinn increased family involvement through family recognition efforts and regular communication through phone calls, home visits, and newsletters. She also makes efforts to recognize families through special treats and posting in our school. She also facilitates our family engagement and equity action team meetings, where she tracks data and supports planning for upcoming family engagement activities and events. Mrs. McGuinn is dedicated, and that shows in her desire to be part of all school functions and activities, including Saturday events. We are all so grateful for her and her exemplary passion to go above and beyond. So I just felt as though this quote that came from one principal at one of our school communities truly talked about the work of our team. And I will now just say thank you for your time and attention, and I welcome any of your questions and comments.
Thank you so much, Ms. Cole-Johnson, for your presentation, and I will reserve my comments to the end. Ms. Atkins, we want to start with you.
So thank you. Thank you to your family advocates, your engagement coordinator, your impact coordinator, your grant coordinator, your resource and enrichment coordinator, all of your family advocates, and yes, your secretary. I think there's approximately 35 individuals on your team, and your department is an example of excellence in action. What strikes me the most about the FACE team is the variety of ways in which each individual communicates, and the lens that they use in communicating. If there's a digital component, there's a manual. If there is a phone call, it's followed up sometimes with an email. They use such a variety of ways. If we're talking about books, it's the bus, it's come on site, it's let me deliver it to you. I had the opportunity of helping deliver meals and going and taking bags of foods to doors, and the level of compassion and empathy that your team has. They're sometimes making some really hard decisions, but in the delivery of the message, it's always empathetic. And I'm just so pleased with you as a leader and with your entire department, whom are leaders within themselves. And that's why there's been so much success in your reach and your department reaching thousands of individuals and meeting needs as well as desires, and it's to be commended. I am just honored to even be able to say that to you in this moment.
Thank you.
What advice would you give me in assisting you in moving forward in the future with your vision and your goals?
Wow. Well, thank you so much, and that's a great question. I actually am extremely appreciative for what the school board has done. I think you all have been very intentional and aware of family engagement efforts, not just in my department, but throughout the district. I know that there's an interest of just expanding the efforts. Most of our advocates are really central in our Title I schools, and then we have a few in others. But I will, if this is even a great time to share, we have some additions that have been made. I know that Tina Assop with federal programs shared last week. Thank you all. We've been able to add 2 additional family advocate positions. So while there are 2, we will stagger that out over a total of 4 school communities. We also have been able to, as I mentioned earlier, expand our contract even for a month for the advocates that are in some of our schools, which allows them to get in front of some of the planning and detail that comes in place before welcoming students and families back in the fall. And then also a really big win. So again, thank you to our school board and to Dr. Cashwell for repositioning a position, so we'll be able to hire on a family engagement specialist. And hopefully, once I can wrap up the job description, we'll have that out and posted by next week. And so just continuing to be aware of the needs in the county and being able to support the growth that will be needed regarding staff.
Thank you so much. Duly noted. I've been writing as you've been talking, so thank you for sharing.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Atkins. Ms. Kinsella.
Oh, Miss Cole Johnson. Yes. Oh my gosh. I think I first met you. You came to Henrico Schools fall 2019.
Yep. October 2019.
And to use words from your presentation, oh my gosh, you have not only built, bridged, and boosted, you have transformed this department since your arrival. I mean, you weren't even here, 5 months, and we went into the pandemic. And really, the transformation and you and your team, I mean, the family advocates, I said to Dr. Cashwell and colleagues frequently, I was like, if it wasn't for family advocates and Adrienne Cole Johnson's work, and, you know, of course, when we weren't as connected to our buildings, I don't know how we would have served our students and families. So just the work that you've done since your arrival here, thank you and your team. I could not be more excited to know that we're adding some advocates. Thank you so much. And to know that even though they're going to share schools, these schools' needs, students' needs will be met. So that excites me. Your partnership with the HCCPTA, with the digital resources, I look forward to seeing what more we could do there and whatever board support you may need, whatever board support you may like with board members. I don't know what it looks like. And then I'd like to know, so we've extended the contracts then, so our family advocates would start work when? Because there's so much work to do, right?
It absolutely is, and thank you for your comments. So, and really for the 4 schools that we listed with our community school sites, those are the 4 that will be able to start the beginning of August 1. Our 10-month advocates start when new teacher week begins, and so August 23rd is when they will be beginning. But the ones that have that additional month will start at the beginning of August.
So what will you do, or how will the work get done? And this is just me thinking about how much we're facing in the fall.
Absolutely, yep.
Socially, emotionally, the mental challenge, just the needs within our communities. Do you have a plan worked out for how you're going to get, I would imagine, is a lot of work done this summer?
Absolutely.
You have the team.
Absolutely. I have
to do all that work?
Yep. I will have to give another mention to our federal programs family. In particular, Dr. Willis with Title I. She's prioritized, I believe, 6 positions for the summer. So we have advocates who are able to work over the summer, whether it's any needs that come up with summer school, Big Blue, and things of the sort. And so we'll be much leaner this summer, but I think we'll still be able to get just as much done in preparation for fall.
Well, given the work you were able to accomplish, I have no doubt. But just please let Dr. Cashwell and the board know how we may best support you, and which means we're supporting our students the best way we can. Recently, I love seeing the message in the presentation from Ms. Modrak. Can you, or perhaps Dr. Cashwell, speak to the EL software that the division has purchased that will help us better communicate with our families?
Dr. Cashwell, if you have more insight, I know that it's come up and I know Sarah's been really excited about it, but I'm not sure of the details of that.
Be happy to provide an overview, and I think this has been one of those multi-departmental efforts, as you know, family and community engagement, thinking about everything we do, from seeing the more translated documents more frequently coming from Mr. Jenks and his team, communicating it to the masses, knowing that our teachers in the classroom, our principals, those in our school buildings need assistance in being able to have more real-time access to translation. We are rolling some new things out this fall that will allow more of that real-time versus us maybe translating some foundational documents centrally. Also has some call-in features and those sorts of things. And then, of course, the use of things like the Remind app can continue as teachers are able to use that in real time also.
Well, Dr. Catchwell, I just thank you and the team for being so responsive to really the needs in our community and the need to better communicate with everyone, all of our students and families that we serve. And then, once again, I just like to acknowledge the fact that I keep seeing the strategic plan continually referenced in presentations. Nothing makes me happier to see but that we are grounded and what actually drives the work that we do. So I appreciate you including that slide in your plan. On your last, or toward the end of your presentation, I saw that you have your exploration and engagement slide, and I'm wondering, as you do your listening tour, perhaps could board members, I know I'm interested in joining you and supporting you any way I can and getting out in my community and supporting the advocates, since you will. Do you plan on doing any of that this summer, since you're going to be a little short-staffed?
Absolutely. We are so excited, if I can even say anxious, to get back into the community a bit more. If I could even share what that plans look like further, can definitely email, and would love to have any of you all to join.
Wonderful. Well, please include me on that, and just thank you for everything you and your department have done.
Thank you.
We couldn't have gotten through this past year without you and your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Kinsella. Next, we're going to have Ms. Ogburn.
Okay. Just, Adrienne, first of all, the work you're doing is just so critical and is meeting the needs of so many families. So again, I'll add my appreciation to what everybody else has said, but I focus on one thing in particular, and that's your bridge builders. I love that term. I don't know who coined that term, but it is just perfect for what it actually is. And, you know, just that connecting the families to our schools and our students is so essential. And it really does help our students get that foundation that they need. But one thing that occurred to me while you were talking and Mr. Dussault and his team were talking was, if you look, so much of what y'all are doing is very similar in the way of that you're getting multiple groups within the school system to work together and bringing departments together so that you're not duplicating efforts and really being efficient in the work that you're doing. And it's kind of ensuring that people don't fall, the kids and the work doesn't fall through the cracks, which I think is so essential that y'all are all working together. But in that light, I was thinking that, you know, one of the bridge builder topics when we were talking about literacy could be those parent things that what can you do at home? When you're doing parent education, it seems like to me you have the perfect opportunity to, as we were all discussing, of ways to connect parents to what is new on the literacy approach, but also how they can support their kids at home. And I know, you know, for example, with Big Blue, you can get books, et cetera, but, you know, I think those core very specific things that you can tell a parent that they can do at home. It's just a wonderful opportunity for that. And the other thing that really steps out to me right now, we've got up on that slide, HEF sponsoring the full service community schools, but we've got our community school sites that HEF supports. And just once again, not only did we get grants a few minutes ago, but we have HEF yet again supporting our community and family engagement, which is it's in the scheme of things, new approach for HEF, but such a wonderful resource to have the ability of HEF to sponsor some of the things, but also be the funnel, you know, for those efforts, for the fundraising efforts, and help us make those things happen. Because who would do it? We don't know. It just, and they're making it happen. So again, a shout out. Mike is still here. Yes, there he is. To HEF and the work that they do to support you and your team and what you're doing. And the vision is the same. That's what I hear so often.
Yes.
when I'm at HEF meetings, but also listening to the work that y'all are doing, is you keep saying meeting kids where they are, meeting their needs. And that is sometimes a one-on-one individual thing. And, you know, that is so important that families feel like somebody cares.
Absolutely.
You know, and somebody is there for them. And so I know that, as Ms. Kinsella said about the meals, and I had so many constituents reach out and just say, I don't know what I would have done
Yes.
without you and your team supporting them in a very basic need, but also it was from the heart. They felt like, again, somebody cares. So, and to me, that's basically what you're doing, is you're expressing that to families and to the kids. So I commend you on the work that you're doing, and just so appreciate everything. But, and again, for that work. So thank you for bringing it all together to make it happen.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your comments. And just to echo, I think you expressed it so well. The partnership with HEF has really allowed us to be creative in meeting the needs. You know, most of our money comes from federal dollars, and they're really tight and necessary restrictions. And so having that partnership has really allowed us to meet parents and students where we are. And then also your mention about bridge builders. Thank you, because I think my partners are doing a great job as they're rolling out work. They're reaching out on a regular basis to see how we can schedule workshops and sessions to make sure that families are connected to the work. And so I've really felt that increase even over the last few months. And so really looking forward to doing more of that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Ms. Shea.
Thank you. It's so good to see you, Ms. Cole Johnson.
Good to see you too.
As my colleagues have said, the work that you do, it has always been an important, but especially since COVID, since March of last year, it has become essential and a lifeline for our community. And I feel like you've gone from walking to sprinting and nothing in the middle, and sprinting for marathon lengths.
Yes.
So thank you. Just a couple questions. So some of our schools have lower concentrations of poverty, but still have discrete families with significant need.
Yes.
So how are we making your department and all of y'all's great work known and accessible to these families?
That's such a great point. And so many of the coordinators, especially some of the ones that I mentioned here recently, since the CLC work came under our department, they have a bit more flexibility of where they work, so they're not paid through Title I funds. And so often we're able to kind of scale their work and efforts to support those families. I would say also always just being a resource. And so we often have principals, teachers, folks in leadership in schools who just reach out to get input and insight about what may be happening and more information about school resources. And so we're always making sure we're available to respond to that.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And I hope as more people learn about the wonderful work that y'all do, they're able to connect more people. It's kind of an exponential process, if you will. I really appreciate how you talked about some of your things in terms of building trusting relationships. And Ms. Ogburn and I will often talk about how, from the classroom perspective, that the foundation of great instruction comes from meaningful relationships. And it's very similar with the work that you do in terms of building relationships. So I appreciated that perspective. I also appreciate that next year you're going to have a hybrid approach for your Bridge Builder Academies. We are a big county.
Yes.
And most of the bridge builders happen in the evening, or a significant number of them happen in the evening when there's a lot of traffic on 64, and it can be hard to get from point A to point B. So I think that hybrid model will really increase accessibility across our county to all families. Absolutely. So I appreciate that. I was pleased to hear that we have a goal of having a full service school in each district. That immediately pings in my head about some capacity, because we would have to reallocate some spaces in those schools. So I also pinged in my head some great schools that are listed to be rebuilt. Okay. That could be great locations as we think about those things. So just putting that plug in. And then Dr. Cashwell and or Ms. Cole-Johnson, would you share with the board at some point a list of where our family advocates are located, just so that we have an idea of which schools have this?
Absolutely, I can do that with ease, that's fine.
Awesome, thanks, that's all I have.
Thank you so much, Ms. Shea. So it's like beating a dead horse, but I'm gonna hit it one more time. And thank you for your leadership, stewardship, mentorship, and modeling when it comes to leading our FACE department. I've had the privilege of working with you and your staff and dealing with the myriad of challenges that our community faces, and you all's efforts in addressing those challenges are to be commended. Thank you for your presentation as well. I want to say it was very thorough, informative, and inspiring. I can't say enough about Mike Taylor and HEF for their continued partnership and investments. I was excited when we had the initial presentation before the 2015 implementation of our first community school site at Glen Lee Elementary School, and then the expansion to 3 more of our schools, specifically in my district. As well as now I'm excited about the full service community school hub and spoke model. On HEF's website, there's a page called Results. That page on HEF's website shares the impact of their investments, similar to a nonprofit's annual report. The question I raise is, does the Family and Community Engagement Department share in that same vein annual report that tells the story of the phenomenal work and impact that you and your team is making in our schools and community?
That is a great question, and that's a great idea, because as of now, we have not done that, but I do think that would be a great way to really show the impact. Even in preparing for this presentation, I was able to really reflect on all of the work that's happening. So if you don't mind, I may borrow that idea or suggestion to see what that may look like, just to share what the impact and initiatives are coming through the department.
Well, you know, I think it's just very important that we show quantitative and qualitative measures. And I think, you know, for those persons who are visual, it will definitely share the story, because we can share as many platitudes as we want. But that page on Mike's website is so powerful in that, in essence, what's my return on investment? And we can kind of give a nebulous, you know, macro answer about the many lives that are being changed, and we know that. But to be able to drill it down and to share it and to show it, I just think it would be so impactful. As well, you know, and be considerate of sharing the outcomes of the programs of the CLCs as well. You know, with that implementation at Glen Lee and now the build out, I mean, it's just phenomenal to see the impact that those individuals and the programs are having on the students and the community as a whole. So again, thank you. That was just my only 2 cents. I know it's not much, but that's all I have to offer you.
I think it was a great idea, so thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Cole-Johnson.
Thank you, and thank you, board members, for your questions. And I know we owe you a couple items, and we'll get you those follow-ups based on your questions related to her presentation. And also, again, Chairman Cooper, appreciate the recommendation related to the impact report. It's a great suggestion. All right, for the next item, it is a great pleasure to have Mac Baton, our Director of Workforce and Career Development, come up for the next 2 items. We are so pleased that we're going to have the opportunity to recognize some local businesses as members of our VSBA Business Honor Roll. And so I will let you tee up that item.
Thank you very much. Chairman Cooper, members of the board, Dr. Cashwell, colleagues and guests. Local businesses have the power to shape the community's attitudes about public schools. Every spring, the Virginia School Board Association Business Honor Roll provides a way for local divisions to say thank you for the business's support. Businesses, large and small, cooperative-owned or family-run, play a major role in supporting our communities and the local schools. They contribute to our school divisions in many ways, including helping schools with in-kind or financial contributions, donating to scholarship programs, supporting extracurricular activities, offering internship opportunities, volunteering in the schools, sponsoring field trips, and many more things. This type of support is invaluable to a school system. Before we watch a short video recognizing these three businesses, I would like to say just a few short words about each company. The first company we'll be recognizing tonight, or this afternoon, is Rico USA. We're recognizing the Henrico division of Rico. Rico continues to support our school division, and last year, during the pandemic, they stepped up and helped us provide every student who graduated with a personalized program of their graduation. They also supported financially the support to survey over 700 businesses in the Henrico area to determine their opinion and needs and perceptions of CTE. They have representatives that support multiple committees and serve in many different ways in our CTE departments. The next company is one, and I have to start with this. This is a company that every time I've gone to and asked a favor, they never say no, and that is the Henrico Federal Credit Union. Every time they've asked, they step up to the plate, not only to the plate, but go beyond. Whether it's providing funding to support our students, helping support students going to national competitions, hiring students, or even providing a vehicle for students to ride last year at graduation around the racetrack. They're always there, willing to do whatever they can for the students, the staff, and the school system as a whole. And the last company that we'll be recognizing this afternoon is E-Tech Mechanical. Now, E-Tech stepped up to the plate and has provided more than just support. They have provided labor and help to help our students learn. This year, they provided all the equipment to provide the HVAC system for our 20th house. But more importantly than just the devices, they provided technicians to come out and work side by side with our students and teach them how to install the systems correctly. In reality, all these companies, large or small, continue to go above and beyond supporting Henrico County Public Schools. So at this time, we'll watch a short video highlighting the acceptance from these three companies. You don't need to hear that part.
We had such loud sound with all the other videos. It's kind of strange to have none. So please pardon us while we work through this technical difficulty. We will go back to the start and see if we can figure out why this particular video is absent of sound.
I didn't have sound either.
If not, we may have to have you narrate it for us, or at least give us an overview while we're watching.
We were at the Rico division, Henrico division, and we actually had representatives, and it was funny, this was during the gas shortage, and one of the company representatives drove in from Roanoke, and he said it was the first time he had driven the trip to Richmond many a times, but this is the first time he ever had to put gas cans in the back of his cars to make sure he could get home at the end of the day.
Well, we were hearing sound, but not the sound of the video we wanted. So I appreciate the patience folks are affording us while we work through it. Second try and still no sound. Yep. So we'll provide it to the board and make sure that it's there for your viewing pleasure at another time. You can see some footage of the award being given. And just so pleased. Okay, great. The one in board docs has sound. That means everybody can access it. So awesome. I apologize. We will push on with the presentation. Yep. Okay, well, we're not going to give up that easy. Mrs. Harris and Mrs. Burton have an answer for us. All right. I know we have a public forum scheduled at 4:30, so in the essence of sticking with our time and honoring our guests who may have come for that reason, we'll push on with the agenda. But thank you, Mr. Baton, for providing that video. We look forward to checking it out and would invite those viewing at home to check it out in board docs. Yes, we can go on to the next item.
All right, so we're going to, as the superintendent stated, we're going to kind of deviate from the agenda for a moment and then resume right back where we were in order to be true to our time. The next item on our agenda is the public forum. This is the time where citizens are invited to address the school board on any matter of concern about the school division. Citizens have signed up in advance. Speakers will be given 2 minutes to address the school board. We will follow the sign-up list, and the board will not hear from the speakers who have not signed up in advance. Those who have signed up to speak may not relinquish their spot to someone else. We ask that each speaker come to the microphone and clearly state your name and neighborhood or school affiliation. To assist you in tracking your time, there is a timekeeping system on the platform of the stage. Speakers will have a 2-minute time limit. The light will be green as you begin your remarks. The yellow light means you have 1 minute remaining, and we ask that you please stop speaking when the light turns red. The school board is here today to hear from you, the community. Speakers should speak directly to the board. We will not be responding to speakers. We appreciate your attendance here this afternoon and for providing your input. The first speaker is Ms. Yao Levin, and then the second will be Ms. Sarah Edens. Edens or Edens?
Middle school have been nothing short of life-changing for my son when we switched from private. Under the leadership of Mr. Stein and Mr. Reese and their phenomenal staff, my son has grown to be a pathetic and confident young man. And that is despite the lack of leadership from HCPS. When George Floyd was brutally murdered by a cop, he justly issued a statement condemning the murder, condemning racism and supporting students of color in our community. When the killings in Atlanta happened, even though it was determined the motive was not anti-Asian, he justly issued a statement condemning anti-Asian violence and support for our Asian American students. When Ms. Ogborn shared that she enjoyed reading Dr. Seuss books to her granddaughter, he made her step down his chair and assign her to a re-education camp. But now, the Jews in her area are being harassed and calls further down shouted at the protest downtown last week. And when the oldest synagogue in downtown Richmond was the entrance was just shattered with bricks. And Urban Cooper, how would you like that if it happened to your church? Jews are being attacked all over the country, and you've been silent. My sons should not be afraid to be seen wearing their Star of David necklaces. My family should not be afraid to go to synagogue now that it is finally reopened. Most of my mother's family was annihilated by the Nazis. I have only 3 elderly relatives that are still alive that are Holocaust survivors. We are no longer safe here, and your silence speaks volumes. I have a lot more to say, but I don't have time, so I will hand you copies of my printer several of these times every month.
Thank you so much, Ms. Levin. Mrs. Edens, did I say it right? Edens, which one? Correct me. Thank you, ma'am. We can.
She's welcome to adjust the mic.
Let me just say, you start her time over if you could. If you'd like to, you can move the mic up if you like. There's a knob you can turn.
Or just
hold
point
the mic.
it up.
Yeah,
There you go.
Yep.
Is that better? Whoa, yeah. Okay.
Y'all didn't hear me.
We could hear you.
All right, Reverend Cooper, school board members, and Dr. Cashwell, thank you for allowing me to address you in person today. This year, sadly, I have lost a lot of trust in HCPS leadership. I have never been one to blindly send my kids off to school and trust that HCPS will educate my kids perfectly. My husband and I believe that we are charged with educating our children. And for the past 5 years, we've chosen to utilize the public school system in order to do this, and we have had a positive experience overall. We adore their school and the staff there. My husband's also a history and government teacher in Henrico, so we have a lot of skin in the game. This year, things changed, and sadly, much of my trust has been broken. First, my husband and I had to fight tooth and nail just to send our kids to school in person. For half of the school year, you chose the best way for my child to be educated in the midst of the pandemic, rather than allowing my husband and I to make that decision for ourselves. The battle regarding reopening has left me wounded and hesitant to trust your leadership. Now, when I hear you discussing complex topics such as equity, diversity, and opportunity, I'm hesitant to believe that you have noble intentions. One of the cornerstones in your strategic plan is reducing disparities. That's a good thing. I wonder if this cornerstone is actually a disguise for social justice indoctrination. When I read the mission of the Office of EDO, I see words like eliminate bias, barriers, and harmful power dynamics. This is critical race theory jargon, and it is very concerning to me. Let me be very clear. Indoctrination of any kind has no place in our public school system. Social justice rhetoric.
I want to show you that your mic didn't go dead because your time went off. I don't know what happened. So please don't take it as that occurred, but the light has turned red. Yes, ma'am. If you'd like, you can leave your comments, the rest of your comments. Okay, well, go ahead and quickly finish it.
Social justice rhetoric and critical race theory should not be pushed out the first of our teachers, students, or families. The desire to reduce disparities, this is not the way to do it. I want every child in this county to receive a stellar education. Our school system must focus on academic rigor, teaching reading, math, critical thinking skills, but please leave the activist ideology out of the classroom. Through history, the good, bad, and the ugly, teach good character, but please do not teach sociological theories that are controversial, divisive, and rooted in Marxism. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you both for your comments. We will now go back to our agenda as printed. Madam Superintendent, you want to pick up where we left off?
I certainly will, and Mr. Baton may want to come forward again. And so we were, while we regret that the video sound wouldn't play, wanting to certainly provide the highest of honors to 3 local businesses, which we were highlighting today, and thank them again for their work with our school system. Did you have any other comments related to that one before we move on to the next item, the workforce readiness?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. The next item, I am recommending that the school board approve the VSBA Excellence and Workforce Readiness application, which you've had a chance to review. We are happy to answer any questions you may have about that application before you approve it.
Board members, are there any questions in regards to the Workforce Readiness Award application? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the VSBA Excellence and Workforce Readiness Award application?
So moved.
Been moved by Ms. Shea. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Kinsella. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. The application has been approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. For the next item from Finance and Administration, I am asking that the school board approve the 2021-2022 education fee and tuition schedule. You had a chance to review at a prior meeting, and so I am seeking your approval at this time.
Thank you, Madam. Is there a motion to approve the 2021-2022 education fee and tuition schedule for students?
So moved.
It's been moved by Ms. Ogburn. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Shea. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. The education fee and tuition schedule have been approved.
Thank you. For the next item, I'm asking that the board award a construction contract to Valley Boiler and Mechanical Incorporated in the amount of $224,000 for the cooling tower replacement at Quioccasin Middle School.
Well, just wait a minute, Ms. Shea. I'm gonna let you do it. I saw how quickly you responded. Is there a motion to award the contract for the cooling tower replacement at Quioccasin Middle School?
Absolutely, so
It's
moved.
been moved by Ms. Shea. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Kinsella. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the ayes have it. The contract has been awarded.
Thank you. The next items are consent items, so they can be taken in a block. I am requesting your approval of the following: our acceptance of monthly financial statements and budgetary status report for the month ending April 30, 2021, acceptance of the monthly financial statement for school nutrition services for the month ending April 30, 2021, and the approval of personnel items.
Thank you so much, Madam Superintendent. Is there a motion to approve the following consent items: 14.01, 14.02, 13.03?
So moved.
It's been moved by Mrs. Ogburn. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Shea. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The consent items have been approved.
Thank you. That concludes items from the superintendent.
Thank you so much, Madam Superintendent. Board members and guests, the next item on our agenda is the approval of minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from April 22nd, 2021 work session?
So moved.
Been moved by Ms. Atkins. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Shea. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The minutes have been approved. Next item on our agenda is unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business? Hearing none. Is there any new business?
Reverend Cooper, I do have one item, and that's just to bring something to the board's attention, and that is our meeting calendar. Obviously, in the fall, we have, we'll see. We don't know if our meeting schedule is going to change different than it is right now, but on October 28th, again, speaking for HEF, this meeting is all about, a lot of references to HEF. There is a fundraiser on the 28th, which happens to also be a meeting day for us. So I would just suggest as we go forward and look at our meeting calendar for the fall, we look at possibly, that's the fourth Thursday, which would typically, if we go back to our normal schedule, be a night meeting, but consider possibly making in October the first meeting of the month a night meeting if we have one. It's just something we need to address when we go back to our normal schedule, but I'll put that on everybody's radar that we do have a conflict on the 28th of October. And then I have two announcements. Do you mind if
Let me just
we'll do those
speak
in
to
a
that real
second?
quick. So thank you again for making us aware of that. I can guarantee you that the superintendent and leadership of the board will work with the clerks, and we will come up with the best way to rectify that.
That would be great. Thank you.
You may proceed.
Okay, and I do have two quick ones just to put on everybody's radar also for HEF. The golf tournament, their annual fundraiser golf tournament is October the 12th. Any golfers out there who are interested, to put that on your calendar. And I also wanted to give a shout out to Ridge Elementary School teacher Erin Reddick, who was named the Elementary School Counselor of the Year for the state of Virginia, which is an awesome recognition for not only Ridge Elementary and Ms. Reddick, but also for Henrico County. So shout out to Erin and for all the good work that she does as our school counselor.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Ogburn, for bringing that to our attention. Board members, is there any other new business from anyone else? All right, hearing none. The next item on the agenda is the announcement of meeting dates The school board's next meeting will be a work session scheduled on Thursday, June the 24th, 2021 at 1 p.m. in the New Bridge Learning Center Auditorium. The meeting time may be adjusted if needing. This meeting is adjourned.